Chapter 325 have begun. Just a reminder, it is getting messy, not this chapter. Be a man or a woman and hold on. Extra chapter, every, plus $10, patron or PayPal. Extra chapter, 5,000 votes. Extra chapter, 8,000 votes. VIK Mathar. Defeat, fall, obey. Words of absolute dominance. Words said by someone who is dominant and sadistic. Comprehending those words was the easiest John could ever do. This was an original shout that John made. A shout that breaks the hearts of men by Vike, defeat, bends the knees of men by Ma, fall, and pressure the heads of men by Thar, obey. A shout meant for a tyrant. The throne room of the Blue Palace witnessed the most shocking scene that happened in ages. All were kneeling for one man, and those who couldn't resist at all were kowtowing. Still, John was mindful. He spared some from the effect of the shout by his will. Those were Torig, the Jarl, the ambassador, and his people. They were simply standing but on the brink of falling down as well. Torig looked around himself and saw the tens of people in his throne room all kneeling to John. Erikr was on his knees and head in front of John's foot, and John himself enveloped in his demonic tyrannical aura. Just what on Nirn did happen for John to go this wild? The suppression was strong, but it seemed that John started to focus his anger on Erikr. People started to feel lighter and raise their heads, but that's as far as they could do. Their curiosity made them look up, but their instincts kept them kneeling. John stretched his hand towards Erikr and pulled his head up by the hair. "Worm, speak." John's voice was cold. It carried no hint of any emotions but deep anger. His soul-crushing stare dug deep in Erikr, who continued to grit his teeth and endure. "I'll break you, Worm. I'll show you suffer that no mortal can withstand. Want to live? Talk." Even on the edge of death, Erikr kept a stubborn head and his mouth was shut. "Thane John, please, tell us what happened?" Torig mustered enough will to speak. "It is Chief Wulfr, Thane John's brother. He was supposed to go through the Reach to Orsinium. Erikr must have done something." Jarl Career, who wasn't affected by the shout that much, replied. "Damn it, Thane John, this is no place for violence. Whatever happened, let us interrogate Thane Erikr and send an imperial attachment to the Reach. No need for violence." Count Pavo, who was faring the best under John's pressure, decided to put the matter on hold. "Damn, those Nords. They lose the aim of things and put everything on the line. How did a beast like that show up in Skyrim?" He thought. Clearly, Erikr was so absorbed in finishing John's business empire to the point that he ignored John's personal power. John wasn't listening to anyone and threw John across the room to the High King. "Make him speak, Your Grace," he said. "What, Your Grace?" Torig wanted to shout. There was no grace left at all in this hall. "Damn you, Erikr. Just how low did you fall?" Falk Firebeard looked at Erikr and cursed. Erikr finally felt the pressure getting lighter as soon as he got away from John. He barely mustered enough power in his arm and looked up to Torig. "Erikr, what have you done in the Reach?" Torig asked. "Your Grace, I only hired the Forsworn." "You imbecile." Torig couldn't help but cuss. "Who are the Forsworn?" "They are the worst patch of mortals one can cross-path with other than a Thalmor Justiciar team, formerly known as the Madmen of the Reach or simply the Reachmen, a group of Daedra worshippers that inhabited the Reach hold even before the days of Tiber Septim. They invaded Markarth not too long ago and were driven out by Ulfric Stormcloak. Now those same Forsworn were hired by the King's Thane to put down a rival. Still, there was one question left. "Did you fake Wulfr's invitation to Orsinium?" John asked. Erikr didn't answer and simply smiled. And so it was like that. Wulfr was baited to get out of Winterhold too with some trick. John remembered that there were a few orcs who came to witness Wulfr's smithing before inviting him to Orsinium, but that was surely a play. Once Wulfr took the road to Orsinium through the Reach hold, Erikr hired the Forsworn to attack Wulfr, and it was all a bait to send John after Wulfr where another bait will be waiting for him. That's how the people understood it. Erikr wasn't feeling scared the slightest. He was sure that John won't kill him as they were in Hafingar, and it was the truth. Killing Erikr and Hafingar in front of the High King is a declaration of war, but other than that, Jon is free to do whatever he wants with Erikr, who was very direct with his intentions of killing Jon. Jon proceeded toward Erikr, who was thrown at the feet of Torrig. His intent to hurt Erikr was clear, and he was going to use every means to draw out information from Erikr. He took the first step, and before he takes the second, someone blocked his way. That's enough. Sybil Stentor had to step up in front of Jon. Going wild in the Blue Palace and not regarding the High King was like slapping Torrig on both cheeks. Still, it was surprising that Sybil was the first to free herself from Jon's suppression. Move, Jon ordered. I said that's enough. Sybil stood fully in the way of Jon, not caring about consequences no more. A lot was on stake here. She was prepared to fight Jon, and her claws elongated under her sleeves. Jon could tell so, but he didn't care to and simply walked past her. Just as Sybil attempted to stop him, the small girl in black dress and hat stood for her. Both Nefertiti and Sybil were monsters among monsters. A vampire and a were-beast, the legendary counterparts. Sybil tried to brush of Nefertiti, but the latter was even more overbearing than Jon. She transformed into her beast form in an instant and stood face to face with Sybil. The situation was getting way out of control. The appearance of the large cat that emitted enough power to lock Sybil Stentor in her place was adding more chaos to the chaos. Those who saw the cat remembered the tales they heard about Winterhold, that there was a large black cat-like beast has befriended Jon Dare. Now that beast was that young girl. Only a few had a better guess. Is that a Firemane familiar? Bryling asked. The Firemane familiars are the beasts that the firemen's associate their clan with, such as the direwolves, the scar grizzly bears, the snowhawks, etc. It was the only explanation, even though it didn't answer anything. Not daring to ignore Jon, who was already in front of Erikr, the people shifted their gaze from Nefertiti and Sybil Deadlock to Jon and Erikr. Trinvac, speak, worm. I will either know what I want with swiftness or with pain. Jon said. Oblivion swallows you. Erikr cussed at Jon. Is that so? Fine, sing for me. Faz eos ag. Pain, suffer, burn. A second shout was unleashed by Jon. The words were ever so domineering as the first shout, but the effect targeted only Erikr. Everyone looked at Erikr, who was complete as he is. He wasn't shredded in pieces or kowtowing to the ground. He was just still. Only a second later did the people realize the effect of the words. His eyes widened, his body quivered, and his soul shook. He was hit by another Thursdayum created by Jon. The agony shout. Blood flowed from Erikr's eyes as if tears, then a shriek followed. Eh? Imagine if someone was receiving all sorts of pain, not from the perspective of a human but of a dragon. To top that, the Thursdayum was designed to cause agony and no kill that easily. Erikr started rolling on the ground and bleeding like a dying hog. No person ever tried to approach this hellish scene and backed away once Erikr got nearer. Jon was simply following him and looking down on him. Look at you. You squirm on the ground like a worm, just like I said. If you want this to end, then tell me everything. A simple deal. A fair exchange. If my brother lives out of this, I won't come for your life. I am a man of my word. Tinvok, speak. Jon stepped on one of Erikr's legs to stop him from squirming away. Erikr was struggling for his life under the unending pain, he has put it, a pain that came from laterally every piece of his body. I'll talk. I'll talk. Stop. Make it stop. It burns. Jon didn't want to waste any more time and stop the torture he inflicted on Erikr. What Erikr said afterward confirmed all the guesses of the people. Even the message that Falk Firebeard had in his hand had some details that confirmed what Erikr said. This time, not only Winterhold but also Markarth was also very offended. To simply stir trouble in the Reach hold around Markarth was already insulting enough, and Jarl Igmud was foaming from anger. Your Grace, the crimes of Jarl career transcends beyond the Skyrim. The Reachmen problem was always something that worries the Empire, and Thane Erikr is also a partner to the East Empire Company. With Thane Jon's accusations, his crimes will be judged not only in front of Solitude, but in front of the whole Skyrim and an imperial court. Count Pavo was the first to throw Erikr under the mammoth. High King Torrig only nodded and held his head. John was already done and didn't bother with anything else. He simply cast a curse on Erikr and turned around. "We are leaving," he said, and the whole envoy of Winterhold moved. Even Jarl Career was not pleased with the situation and walked beside John. Jarl Career, Thane John, someone called for them. Surprisingly, that was King Torrig. "Solitude is at fault here. Let us handle this situation. Your presence is essential for both the assembly and the case you're filing against Erikr. If you leave right now, things will become complicated. You can search the Reach on your own, let alone reach it now." John paused and turned around. "It is my brother. You are walking into a trap," Torrig shouted at John. "And so be it," John said, and left the throne room with those words. Outside the Blue Palace, the people of Winterhold stood together. "Joel, take the ship and head back to Winterhold. I am coming. Nefertiti is coming. I need you there to deliver the situation to the Alina, Nerina, and the firemen's." Jolinar dejectedly nodded. "Jarl Career, my best security team will escort you back to Winterhold safe and sound. I doubt Erikr's associates will stop after this. I am going after Wulfur. Godspeed." John and Nefertiti separated from the group and walked into the City of Solitude. John already had a plan in mind. He walked towards a building he visited once before in Solitude back when he wasn't even a student at the college. There were the means he needed to reach Markarth as soon as possible. As he walked through a corridor, out of nowhere, someone held his hand tightly. "Hey, let go." John was in a sour mood and was about to lash at whoever that was only to look at her and freeze in his place. It was the dark elf shrine priestess of Azura, Arania Ionith. "Lady Azura greets you," John hilled. "Your labors have begun." PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmezi. Pat Rayon, remove the dash. Patrayon.com/Eldokmezi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 326, The Labor. This bonus chapter comes by Koi-hee Chung, and happy Ramadan. Also, a big thanks to Adamniziak Tin. "Lady Azura greets you," John hilled. "Your labors have begun." What? John's head was short on circuits. What on Nern did that crazy woman just say? "Your labors have begun," Arania Ionith said as if it was the most natural thing in the world. The two of them were standing in the middle of the street while the passers-by were walking past them. John still was having a blank second of his own to put his thoughts together. "How? No, wait. I am busy. Tell your goddess to wait. My brother, he is in trouble," John said and turned away, leaving the dark elf priestess in the middle of the street, but the next words she spoke made him halt his steps. "And how are you planning to find him? In less than a day, your brother would be dead. You may reach the Reach in less than a day judging by your power, but the Reach is too wide and very treacherous. Haven't you thought why your enemies chose that place, in particular, to send you to your own death?" Arania said. John looked at her right in the eye. "I see. Your goddess is keeping tabs on the situation from above. Fine, but I can't do the labor for your goddess and rescue my brother at the same time." Arania nodded. "Lady Azura is merciful, young man. Up until now, she has shown nothing but mercy towards you, unlike her usual. You are in luck, but just like children, you have to be taught a lesson. Lady Azura would curse anyone who harms her brightest star. You are going to be sent on a few labors. Rejoice." Humph. John could only snort with dissatisfaction. Even if his nickname was Dare, there was not much he can do against an almighty Daedric prince like Azura. "So, your goddess is going to help me find my brother in exchange for the labor?" John asked. Arania's smile grew even wider. "Even better," young John hilled. "Your labor is about saving your brother." John's expressions turned blank. He no longer could understand what Azura was doing here. "You know what a labor is, don't you? You helped a laborer once, so you should know." John nodded. How could he forget Isha and what she told him about the labors? Labors are like sports for the Daedric princes, They would sponsor certain mortals they favor for the sake of achieving some tasks in the mortal world that may affect either the near future or the far future. The Daedric lords would put their bets on these mortals by granting them artifacts and blessings. The laborers are normally chosen from the ranks of the unfortunate and the ones who offended the Daedra somehow. Still, more than one Daedric prince can wager on the same laborer, but the laborer would still follow the wish of their sponsor lord. This wasn't all. In regards to the laborer, there was nothing safe. Each labor would always have some ending set in stone, and the laborer is forced on either lose, suffer, or be lucky. Failing a labor wouldn't change anything. It was also another ending, and the rest of the labors would carry on. The rules were cruel but fair. Still, to force the laborers on the labors, the Daedra would employ any mean necessary. Isha's young brother was infected with some sort of disease. Not by the Daedra, but they have its cure, and by laboring, only can Isha get that cure. John has a lot to lose. He has a big family, many friends, and a hold. As he thought about it, his expressions turned into an angry frown. Why would you make that face, young Johnhild? Lady Azura favors you for sheltering her people under her shrine. Among the labors I have seen, you should be the luckiest. I mean, you have already finished a labor and got away lucky. Irenaeus said. What did you say? I have already finished labor? Yes, with the young spear maiden of bitter mercy. Wasn't that Isha's labor? And you labored together. Wasn't your friend's future and mind at stake back then? You survived the mad god. How can that not be a labor? Lady Azura is fair and just, young Johnhild. So it was like that. John was taken aback, but he was not that upset. Still, quit calling me young Johnhild in public. Does Azura even my true name? Damn it. Just tell me what Azura wants from me. He said. Normally, a laborer shouldn't go on their labor without a weapon. Not just any weapon, but a weapon of a Daedric origins. I have 3 of those. Carry on. Excuse me? Irenaea was finally taken aback for the first time. I have 3 Daedric artifacts. Skull of Corruption, Wabbajack, and Maroon's Razor. Would any of them work? John asked with impatient. You have 3? Yeah, should your goddess at least know that? Lady Azura knows all, I just wasn't informed. Still, they won't work. Limiting your option to a weapon you should wield is part of the trials, and as long as Lady Azura gave me no order to direct you towards a weapon, then you are free to use any Daedric artifact for now during the labors. Depending on your actions, any Daedric lord may decide to be a patron and grant you a proper weapon. As your prophet, I will inform you when the time comes. Prophet? That's me. I will find you once you are done with this labor. Johnhild, here is your labor as Lady Azura directs me. You must go to a village surrounded by danger through its old name, survive through the years. There, brothers unite and brothers separate. That's it? Azura's signs are always cryptic. I am not sure where you should go, but that's all the clues you have. Better than turning every stone in the reach, right? John made an annoyed face, but he nodded in the end. So what should I expect? He asked. I don't know. If my foresight is accurate, then you are facing a horde of enemies with unrivaled animosity to anything that can be described as Nord, and you have to rescue what is likely a hostage. John was annoyed, but he just sighed and replied. I'll do as Azura wishes. John turned around and left the woman in blue robes behind. Irenaea merely shook her head and followed Azura's direction to the next location where she should meet John. In a building in solitude, John and another man were speaking to each other with anger. I said I am a teacher at the college and I need it. No means no. You are simply a scholar in your first year of service. Even the Archmage doesn't use that thing you are asking for this often. I don't care. I am in a hurry, dimwit. No can do, Scholar John. The mage in charge of the Solitude's college residence didn't allow John to use the emergency teleportation array. These arrays are secret exclusive only to the senior members of the college and can't be used by just anyone. They also link all the major cities with the college. The cost to use is 10 grand soul gem. Not any mage would afford the price, but John had already forked out 20 of them. I am telling you, it's no use. I can't allow you to use them. So go away, I am sorry. The mage said, Yeah, man, I am sorry too. John sneakily cast paralysis on the man and bypassed him. After that, it didn't take him a minute to figure out the place of the secret teleportation array and how does it work. Hang in there, Wolf. 20th of Sun's Dusk, 4E197, one day, earlier to the assembly. Wolfer and his apprentices bypassed Fort Sungard that acts as a checkpoint between the Reach Hold and Whiterun Hold. Sure enough, the fort was occupied with hold guards and a patch of legionaries. Just like John foresaw, a war will start. Wolfer showed concern for the state of Skyrim, but he had no head for complicated politics. Different than John, Wolfer was a truly 18-years-old young man whose interests were all regarding his hobby and craft, as well as the things that his brother designs. A man of a simple character like Wolfer had grown to a potential even John couldn't foresee. Wolfer was always the picky weapon master and smith whose mind can't be made to use one weapon. He simply can use them all, and that was his dilemma. Rather than weapons and his brother and all the usual Wolfer stuff, Wolfer was the leader of a large patch of the company's mercenaries. His group, which was the heavy infantry, is the largest group, and he controls Team 1, with the duty of managing the Dare arsenal. Simply, Wolfer was John's most trusted person and was the only person who can keep up with John's weird impulses and even predict them. If John was absent and someone asked, what would John do if he was here? Wolfer was the man to answer such a question. Anyway, Wolfer's party traveled on Atronach horses and bears, which made the team look a bit magical from afar. The captain of Fort Sungard also harassed them for such a thing, but the badge of the Dare Dragon Company was enough to open any closed road. As soon as the team entered the Reach Hold, they witnessed a nature that felt different than the rest of Skyrim. The Reach was a very rocky area, and its flora and fauna were special. The Reach was a mix between the rocky High Rock, the green Cyrodiil, and the desolate Skyrim. Wolfer's team didn't have much trouble during the journey from the Fort Sungard half the way to the first settlement on the way, Old Hroldan. As they were on the road between the two stops, the Reach suddenly bore its fangs. Mountain lions, one of Wolfer's apprentices shouted. It was indeed those pesky, unfriendly cougars that inhabit the South Mountains. Maybe John would have been able to deal with them as they are felines, but John was not here, and these beasts were already at full hostility. Form a circle and kill them. Wolfer gave the order, and his team responded rather well. Their Atronach mounts were all powerful enough to scare wild beasts and kill them, but the situation was off. Those mountain lions were hungry and seemed desperate to hunt. Let's not take rests. Hurry to Old Hroldan. It was the right choice to do, but the situation turned weirder and weirder. All sorts of beasts attacked the team. It started with cougars, wolves, then a wild Spriggon appeared and led some animals to attack the team. Still, none of that survived Wolfer's hammer in the end. What was unfortunate was the sight of other travelers getting killed. There were people other than Wolfer and his team on the road, and some of them has met some sad endings. Just as things quietened down for a while, a man appeared sitting on a large rock on the side of the road. The man was short and seemed a bit of savage. His hair was shaved from the sides and tied on the top with a beard. He looked young though, maybe 25 or something. Hey, he called for Wolfer and his men. One of the apprentices of Wolfer came closer to him and whispered, Careful, Chief. That man seems to be a Reach man, a Forsworn. Wolfer looked back at the man who called them and replied, What do you want, friend? Let me ask you, did your people survive those animals that attack people? The man asked, More or less. More or less. I see. A powerful group then. Even the things you are riding look magical. The man started evaluating. State your business or don't bother us, Wolfer said loudly. HM? No need. My name is Alaric. I suppose that one of you is called a weird Nord name. What is it again? Wolfar. Wolfer. Wolfer narrowed his eyes. It seemed that his arrival at the Reach was expected. Well, I assume that's you from the description. The man called Alaric figured out who is Wolfer on his own. Wolfer put his hand on his weapon. Alaric smiled as he made sure his guess was correct. Capture him. Kill the rest. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/eldokmeezy. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon.com/eldokmeezy. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 327, Alaric. Extra chapter. Every, plus $10, patron or PayPal. Extra chapter, 5,000 votes. Extra chapter, 8,000 votes. 20th of Sundusk, November, 4E197. 9 Nords against 100 Forsworn. The odds are disastrous. From the mountains surrounding the road, a lot of figures appeared. They were all wearing furs and bones like savages, yet it all helped them to be completely camouflaged. They held on their bows and crude weapons. To arms! Yet Wulfur shouted valiantly, and all his people took out some heavy shields. Shoot them! Alaric, the forsworn leader whose face was covered with red paint, shouted as he took out a bow and shot at Wulfur. The latter didn't even need a shield to deflect the arrow away with the back of his hand. Alaric seemed to have underestimated Wulfur and put down the bow. There wasn't much to do with a regular weapon like that against someone with Wulfur's level. Alaric took out a spear and gave another command. Pin them down. Don't let these magical creatures break on a run. Contrary to other mounts, the Atronach mounts had endless stamina and could break from 0 to top speed in an instant. Alaric's worry about the Nords using their mounts to charge was not baseless, but his estimation was wrong. The Atronachs may look like horses, but they were basically different beings. Let's make it out of here. We need to reach Old Hroldan, one of Wulfur's said, and Wulfur agreed. Charge! They directed their mounts and decided to escape the hail of arrows with speed while covering themselves with their shields. Not so fast. Alaric realized that there was no stopping those Nords, so he decided to interfere in a melee fight. He ran towards Wulfur with his spear and leaped really high. Even Wulfur was taken aback by the high leap. Blood Eagle. Once Alaric jumped that high, the Forsworn all cheered for him, calling him Eagle. His leap really reassembled a flying eagle. Alaric held his spear with his 2 hands and descended on Wulfur. The Forsworn knew about their brave leader's famous leap and how many gigantic Nords like Wulfur died under it. They were already preparing to celebrate victory in their minds. However, the scene they saw next felt like they were showered with cold water all of a sudden. Wulfur raised his shield facing Alaric and bashed at the right time. The bash sent Alaric even higher than his own leap with a broken nose. Wulfur was simply too domineering even with a forked hand. Too bad he didn't have one. Alaric landed with a bloody nose like a tossed stone, and Wulfur rallied his men to jump away. The Forsworn, who managed to sober up after the unprecedented event, did their best to shoot Wulfur and his men with arrows, only to get blocked by their large shields. Forsworn warriors from Alaric's clan ran to him and helped him stand. He staggered for a bit and held his nose. Arg! Damn it! What was that, man? He cussed right away. Alaric, the Nord is getting away, one man said. Alaric was still bothered by his nose and clicked his tongue. KSK, I know, they will have to go through my brother first. Oh, so Grosh is back there. Alaric didn't bother hand, held his spear once again, only to find it snapped. Damn it, that Nord is truly strong. I need a better weapon, something bloody enough to kill that man, he said and chased after Wulfur. Not far ahead, a situation occurred. Something as if originated in hell blocked the way of Wulfur and his men. What on Nern is that? Even Wulfur was shocked. In front of him was a giant, maybe a bit smaller and looked more like a human. No, it doesn't look like a human. It is a deformed human with an unimaginable height. Wulfur never thought to see someone taller than the fireman's, but in front of him, there was such a freak. Over 3 meters tall, the deformed freak stood with a large club in its hand. Grosh! An angry shout echoed from the freak as it charged at Wulfur and his men in high speed. Dodge! Don't make contact! Wulfur shouted, and his group dispersed into a loose formation to break away from such monstrosity. The Atronach horses ran past the freak one by one, and it couldn't catch any but the last man that almost passed the freak was flung away by the club. Ah! Frilled, Wolfer shouted to his assistant that was sent flying. He turned around and wanted to run for him, but the man has already hit the groan with a chest turned into meat paste. Grosh! Chief, be careful, another assistant shouted. Wolfer felt a large shadow descended on him and reflexively raised his shield. A mighty force smote down on his shield, and the storm Atronak horse under Wolfer crumbled. He could only crash on the ground with his feet and withstand the freak's attack with his 2 hands supporting the shield. Not given any other chance, another hit landed on Wolfer's shield. Grosh! Grosh! Wolfer withstood more smites with the club of the freak until his arms felt numb. The freak kept screaming while hitting Wolfer's shield as if he was frustrated for not being able to smash a wall. Grush! The last hit from the freak shattered Wolfer's shield, but he still withstood it with his level 7 iron bone strength. Not only Wolfer's assistants witnessed Wolfer's admirable strength. Alaric and his people have already caught up and saw something they didn't want to believe right away. Grosh! Don't hit him from above. Kick him! Alaric shouted at the freak. Grosh looked between Alaric and Wolfer, realizing what he should have done from the start rather than frustrating itself. Grosh simply kicked Wolfer. To Wolfer, attacks from above were easily manageable by his strength and healing aura. Still, an attack by such a creature from the side sent Wolfer flying like a loosened arrow. His body was simply too numb from dodge the kick after the thunderous strikes that broke his shield open. Damn it! Help the chief. The assistants hurried to where Wolfer landed and wanted to take him, but Alaric was faster as he started shooting arrows at them with his men. Grosh! Finish that man. With a word from Alaric, the demented freak ran towards Wolfer with heavy thuds, as if he was an actual giant. Yet out of nowhere, something weird occurred. Fusaro-da! The 3 meters tall freak was sent away in the air just like that. Boss! One of the assistants looked around looking for John, the only one who can shout in their minds, but his guess was incorrect. Wolfer was the one who shouted. He managed to stand up and shout before it was too late and hurriedly retreated to his men. Let's get out of here. Fast! Covered by shields, Wolfer managed to summon another storm Atronak horse, and his team broke into a run towards Old Hroldan. The Forsworn were shocked by the unpredicted chain of events, but their shock was accompanied with anger. Alaric realized what happened faster than anyone and ran towards Grosh to check on him. Grosh! Brother! Are you okay? Grosh! Grush! It's okay. It's all right. You did your best. Don't be sad. Alaric comforted Grosh, who was deeply depressed about what happened, and looked towards where the Wolfer escaped. His expressions were full of wrath, just like the rest of his clansmen. Alaric! That Nord! He shouted. Not all the Forsworn were angry. The young ones were angry, but the old ones were a bit fearful. The reason was pretty much understandable. They witnessed the Thursdayum once a long time ago before the Reachmen become the Forsworn. It was the very reason why they swore in the first place. The shout that destroyed everything back then, the shout that crushed the kingdom the Alaric's grandfather, the shout that killed his father and brothers when the gates of Markarth crumbled down on them, the shout that Ulfric Stormcloak used to regain the Reach and put the Reachman King in chains. To the Forsworn, this was the day of the humiliation when the Nords killed every last Reachman in Markarth, and even the Nords that lived under the rule of Madnak, once they retook it. Wolfer may have pushed away a disaster by the shout, but he evoked another one. Alaric, the matrons, they want us to bring that man. Alive? One of the men asked. Alaric's glare towards Wolfer's direction only stopped when the matrons were mentioned. The matron's word is our law. If we can't take that man down with 100, we will bring 1,000. Alaric said and turned to his men. That man, Wolfer, he won't be able to run to Markarth. His direction will be Old Hroldan to rest after Grosh hit him. I saw him weakened. He raised his bow up and called. Call all the clans. You call the Bloodravens, you call the Bone Crushers, and you call even those poisonous bastards from the Doomfang. I will travel to the deep caves and meet the matrons, ask them for aid. He then turned towards the mountains, but he remembered something and spoke once more. If they wouldn't comply, tell them that the blood eagle Alaric, their prince and the grandson of Madnak, will deal with them after he takes the head of that Nord. Alaric's last orders brought chaos not only to the Forsworn but to the whole Reach. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmezi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon.com/Eldokmezi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 328, Under Siege. Extra Chapter. Every, plus $10, Patron or PayPal. Extra Chapter, 5,000 votes. Extra Chapter, 8,000 votes. 21 SD of Sun's Dusk, November, 4E197. Old Hrolden is an ancient village on a crossroads that serves both as a checkpoint and a traveler's inn. Right now, the small village was barricaded to the teeth. Last night, a band of 8 Nords arrived at the town inn with horrific news. A large group of Forsworn is coming from the east. The village's guards patrolled the town and sent a few messengers to Markarth for reinforcements, but they all returned some wounded and 2 dead. The Forsworn were blocking all exits. Wulfr, the leader of the Nord band, was tired and he rested in the inn for the night. A rumor went that he battled a gigantic freak and the situation escalated to this point. The town did not know that Wulfr was wanted by the name to the Forsworn, and his apprentices kept their mouths shut. In Wulfr's room, he and his men were making a strategic meeting. Wulfr was wounded from his duel with Grosh, the gigantic freak. He was bandaged and in pain, but he was lucky that he left Winterhold with many potions on him. His wounds only needed some rest, but he lost his shield, which he never thought it would be smashed like that. Oblivion, why was there such a creature in the first place? He sat depressed while applying a healing spell on himself. Now that he became ready, he was preparing to make those Forsworn eat shit when they come. Chief, I never knew you could use the Thursdayum, one of his men said. John is my brother, for goodness sake. If I didn't learn it after 14 years of following him, then I should be some sort of fool. Wulfr smiled as he said so. Chief, you can shout like the boss now, can you? Like John? Oblivion, do you think anyone in the world can shout like him? I can only shout once a day, so I'll make the best of it. Oh, I see. What is important now is to fortify the village. I am not sure how the folk will feel, but we can't drag this fight any longer. The Forsworn are almost 100 and they have that freak. I want all of you to rest well before they come. 2 of us shall accompany the guards available while the other rest. We need to be in our best condition for the battle. Wulfr made a fast plan. Right, Chief. About the village's guards. There are a few of them, but the men who are ready to fight raise the number to 30. Wulfr pondered a little. That's far from enough. I need to hold that large freak if he shows up, and that one who calls himself Alaric is not an easy opponent for you. These 2 will be my target. You 7 will have to drag the other Forsworn with him and kill them slowly. Use the barricade and blockage tactics we trained on. Yes, Chief, the man said, but started thinking a little. What is it, Jalgvar? Chief, I am just worried. Those Forsworn seem to be waiting for us and knew you by name. Wulfr remained silent, but nodded in the end. So, I was saying, is there a chance that we are being ambushed by someone who knew our traveling plan? Wulfr was thinking of that matter ever since he met Alaric. Someone wanted him, and to top it, the Forsworn were hired somehow. It was impossible for the Nords to hire the Forsworn, as the blood vengeance between the 2 races was always boiling hot. Still, John said that the Forsworn are being controlled once. He was sure that John may find a clue, but that was not the time for these ideas. They have to survive first. Don't worry about that for now. I don't think going to Orsinium matters now. We shouldn't even head to Markarth. Are we returning? Yes, this is the best course of action. We should escape when we put down enough of them and run to the north. There is a mining village right before Whiterun Hold. We then will reach Rorikstead and from there to Whiterun. Rorikstead has better defenses and the Forsworn won't venture that far. After that, We will bring the company down on those fuckers and avenge Frilg." "Thank you, Chief," the man said, and left Wolfer to rest. Wolfer was still worried about another matter. He wanted to avenge the comrade that died, but also wanted to return his men safe to their families, yet he had that bad feeling. He shook the bad ideas away and laid on the bed for some rest. Sun didn't even set before the Forsworn arrived. The number was massive. Not sure why, but they seemed to have fought with someone before they arrive at Old Hroldan. Wolfer stood atop of a watchtower and could see Alaric and Grosh. The terrain of the area was not suitable for an open battle anyway. The village was on a road surrounded by 2 mountains and on a river flowing through the valley. Just why would they bring that number? Wolfer was vexed by the unforeseen situation. Out of his knowledge, Alaric has made a big mistake by mobilizing all those Forsworn, and that's not even the true number of the forces Alaric was intending to bring. When Alaric ordered the others' clans to come, his actions were noticed by the Nord clans outside the Reach, and they didn't know what was going on, so they mobilized their forces too. Some of those clans were the Nordic Blackbone clan, an enemy of the Firemane and clan that utilized necromancy while attacking the Firemane clan with the Bloodsails almost a year ago. They were defeated, but their ancestral home was far from the Firemans and Winterhold, so the Firemans didn't go after them. Still, the Blackbone clan moved with other Nordic clans to intercept whatever those Forsworn were doing. Away from Old Hroldan, there were multiple skirmishes taking place, but Alaric has rallied the best numbers he can utilize to face Wolfer. Torch that village. Force those Nords out. Alaric and the Forsworn started shooting fire arrows at Old Hroldan. Incoming. The Nords were fortifying the village to the best of their ability. The children and the old ones were hiding in some caves behind the village, and the men started to put down the fire while shooting arrows back at the Forsworn. This won't do much. The village can't hold them. Wolfer concluded. We need a tighter ground. Wolfer and his men started shooting arrows back at the Forsworn and killed a considerable number of them. Knowing that he was the target, Wolfer decided to abandon Old Hroldan, but was afraid that it would be used against him as a hostage. An hour passed and darkness descended. Light in the village only meant death. If a place was torched by a fire arrow and someone was spotted, then that person will be riddled with Forsworn arrows. The Forsworn tried to sneak in the cover of darkness into the village, but Wolfer and his men were prepared for such tactics and used the reverse psychology to empty the village from its defenders. With one last distraction, Wolfer and his men escaped the abandoned Old Hroldan towards the mountains in the north. The Forsworn were the best to navigate in the Reach as they could utilize all the cave networks around the mountains to travel, and soon they found Wolfer and his band. One of Wolfer's men lost his life after being overrun by 3 beast-like Forsworn warriors. What made the matter worse was a group of Hugravens appearing with the Forsworn and acted as spellcasters to the horde. Wolfer and his men couldn't help but run to a mountain where they could secure a cave. With nothing but a wall to their back, the 7 Nords faced the Forsworn horde valiantly fending off their grounds as much as they could while throwing large rocks and on any Forsworn that dared to climb the mountain. The Forsworn attempted to rely on their beast-like warriors to reach the Nords up the mountain, but Wolfer personally fought 2 of those warriors at the mouth of the cave and slew them. Chief, what is that? One of Wolfer's men noticed something strange on a body of those beast-like warriors. Wolfer checked it and saw a hole in the chest of that man right above the heart, and instead of the man's heart, there was a strange-looking artichoke-like seed. A briar heart. Wolfer recognized it right away. What is that? Dark magic. John once ordered us to bring him one of those to study, and we went in a lot of trouble to bring it from Markarth. This man is some sort of undead that utilizes the evil force of the seed that took place in his heart and came back to life with it. It is the worst kind of dark magic in Skyrim. These people who have those seeds are called the Briarhearts. Chief, more are coming. Wolfer nodded and took a dagger rather than anything else. He stood in front of his warriors and put his helm on. Once he looked down, he saw almost 7 Briarheart warriors coming up the rocky road. As the men started to carry rocks to throw at them, Wolfer stopped them. Save your energy. These things are nimble and don't feel pain. I'll deal with them. Just watch my back and don't let surround me. 7 briar hearts against 7 Nords. The odds may look even from afar, but Wolfer's people were no match for those creatures. Once the briar hearts got close enough, they screamed like beasts and jumped at the Nords. Utilizing the high ground for themselves, the Nords could keep the briar hearts at check only by the long spears they could use. 6 defended while 1 attacked. Holding the dagger with his left, Wolfer faced the first Forsworn in close quarters. The briar heart tried to wave its hatchet at Wolfer, but the latter was more cunning and kept injuring the tendons of the briar heart with accuracy. Once his opponent's arm was worn down, Wolfer could get close and pluck the seed out of the exposed heart. The briar heart would jump away and fight with its nails and teeth if its heart was targeted, but Wolfer was too large to care and brought down his opponent by plucking out their briar hearts. Just like that, the briar heart warrior fell like a stringless marionette. Alaric was watching from down the mountain and started to feel vexed. Why is he not shouting? I want him to shout. He was obsessed with Wolfer's shout. Having some knowledge that the Thursdayum has a long cooldown, Alaric wanted to eliminate Wolfer's shout before he goes up. Grosh. Grush. What? No. You are not going up unless he shouts. Grosh. You want to take the shout? Are you crazy? It almost killed you. Grosh, grosh. I said no. Alaric was calming his brother from taking any reckless act. It was the only thing he can't sacrifice at the moment. No matter how many Briarheart warriors were used to wear down Wolfer, his brother was not a pawn. The matrons can make more Briarhearts every day for all that he cares for. And also, the matrons brought that thing. No matter if it was Ulfric Stormcloak himself, that thing was made to mass murder. Still, out of his expectations, the Briarheart warriors fell from the mountain faster than he thought, all missing their hearts. One Hagraven went forward to check on the corpses and started screaming and shouting in its hoarse voice that felt like a goblin talking. Bad. Broken. Broken. Bad. Warriors can't rise. What is wrong, Matron Drascua? Alaric asked the Hagraven. Broken. The warrior is broken. Can't use it. Curses. It seemed that she was upset because the body condition of the fallen Briarheart warriors was not fixable. Wolfer has completely sliced the most important parts to completely immobilize them before plucking their hearts. Grosh. Grosh? Grosh went to comfort the Hagraven, who completely understood him. Yeez, do so. The Hagraven encouraged Grosh to his suggestion and Alaric's face paled. No, Grosh. Stop. Not listening to his brother, the 3 meters tall freak started running up the mountain raising its club. Damn it. Alaric tried to catch up, but Grosh was way too fast. Once he started running up the mountain after Grosh, it finally happened. Fussaro da. Wolfer shouted Grosh once again. No. Alaric could see Grosh falling towards him with some rocks and rubble. He barely managed to dodge his falling brother and then started running down to check on him. Matron, please, save him. He found his brother lying down but still breathing. He would do anything for his family, and that was his brother. Will do. Will do. The Hagraven discarded him with the back of her Talon hand. Now, kill that man. Man is bad just like the man who took my eye. Alaric wouldn't voice his complaints to a matron and barely suppressed his anger towards their disregard. Men, let's do it. He took his men and hoarded up the mountain from every direction as a bloody fight was about to start. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmezi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon, com/Eldokmezi. Discord. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 329, Supernova. This is extra of 5k votes. There is still one more extra of a patron, but we'll have to wait a bit. Last night, the Forsworn besieged Old Hroldan. The next day, they besieged the mountain north to it as Wolfer and his band were hiding in a high cave. The fight started once Wolfer eliminated Grosh by shouting him from the mountain. Alaric was enraged as he took his people and climbed the mountain from every direction. Chief, it was an honor. They may not know what happened to us, so let's carve one hell of a scar on those witchmen. Let's make our name reach far and wide. Wolfer's men were in high spirits despite the situation. None of you fuckers is going to die. That's an order. Wolfer was the only one who was feeling the pressure. Yes, Chief. The men smiled as they took their last order from him. Wolfer felt his breastplate and pressed on the amulet of Mara he bought from Whiterun. He was going to use it to propose to Bjorna once he returns. We are not dying today. You fucks are going to serve meat at my wedding. Yes, Chief. And we are going to party for 3 days straight. I want to shame the fanciest weddings ever happened before mine. Yes, boss. He then raised his hammer and spear and howled a war cry. Kill them all. With his savage cry, the 7 Nord young men swarmed down the slope, clashing head-on with Alaric's men. Wolfer threw the spear and skewered 6, then waved his hammer and crushed 3 heads, and by using his momentum, a kick from him launched a man like loosened kite down the mountain. 10 forsworn, 1 breath. Now that I think about it, the weapon John called a glaive would have helped in this situation. A funny idea crossed his mind before he killed another 7 in 1 breath again. He moved like a killing machine, and the 6 behind him barely caught up. They would even hide behind him if it was too much for them. Nord, I am coming for you. You will pay for what you did to my brother. A loud shout reached Wolfer. Ha! Come at me, midget sissy. Once my brother learns of what happens this day, you forsworn will face extinction. Wolfer replied to Alaric. The 2 men had their brothers at the center of their universe and would move mountains for them. Wolfer kept it in his heart that if anything happens to him, John would be here to avenge him. He howled atop of his lungs once again and started killing whoever or whatever came in his way. His hammer, the champion's cudgel, descended left and right and harvested lives as if an instrument of the old knocker, Nordic Grim Reaper. Alaric tried to stop Wolfer's momentum, but he miserably failed. Wolfer was simply an unstoppable beast. How can a man get this strong, damn it? Frustrated, Alaric looked back at the Hagravens that had some twisted smiles on their faces. They seemed to be plotting for something. Wolfer's admirable last stand was astonishingly successful. With 6 men guarding his back, he was simply hacking and slashing with a heavy weapon into lightly armored enemies, taking down a considerable number of them. But like all good things, that came to an end. He was standing with all around him turning red, the grass beneath his feet, the hammer in his hand, and his armor was bright red under the red glow of the setting sun. But more importantly, all his men behind him were lying on the ground with peaceful faces. Damn, Sovngarde already? Wolfer didn't feel bad the slightest despite how he thought, despite how he was surrounded by enemies, despite that demonic thing in front of him. Leshin. Kill. The Hagravens called it Leshin, a walking giant thing made of wood, and its head was a skull of an animal. It hit the ground with its hands and roots came out like spikes. Wolfer avoided the spikes, but it skewered all the fallen bodies and started consuming them. Damn you! Grant me power, Allmaker. Wolfer called for the Allmaker, and the blessing he was saving got activated. Bones of Earth, the blessing that he got in Solstheim, and with it, he can get the spirits of the land to protect him. He waved his hammer at the Leshin, causing the enchantment to activate and made fire damage. Valuable to the fire, the Leshin made a grim screech, but soon the fire was down and it attacked Wolfer again. Hold him. Don't let him move. Alaric rallied his men once again to finally stop Wolfer, but the latter was relentless and unstoppable. He waved his hammer in circles and reached out to any weapon coming at him, throwing it back at anyone's head. Darkness enveloped the world, and the last of the sun rays died as it disappeared behind the horizon. Wolfer was a lone warrior on a hill of corpses of his making, suffering more wounds than anyone. He soon would fall to dizziness and fatigue before falling to his enemies. It was his final minute and darkest hour. Feeling the hand of the old knocker ripping through his chest and claiming his soul, Wolfer knew it was the time to stop. He had done enough. Still, where did that warmth come from? It tingled his skin and bathed him with energy once again. Not sure how, when Wulfur opened his eyes he saw the impossible. Not only him was looking, but it was also every forsworn around him frozen solid from the shock. The sun was rising back from where it's Saturday. John was in the air hovering above the reach. He teleported in Markarth just a while ago from Solitude by the secret teleportation array of the college. With no certain plan on his mind, he kept traveling from one place to the other at the highest speed his flame Atronach hawk can muster. He even sent hawk familiars around the reach to search for Wulfur. Any single trace of battle was his to look at, but it wasn't as if he didn't find any. He actually found a lot. The Forsworn were fighting literally everywhere. Nord warrior and Forsworn clashed nearly at all places. The bridge over Karth River in front of Markarth City was fortified. The villages were tightly guarded. The travelers were being ambushed. Even he was being shot arrows at as he was in the air. What is this chaos? It was impossible that Erikr managed to create all this chaos to get rid of him. It was also impossible that his labor was behind all that. He knew his fate was fortified, and the Daedra can't screw him that much. Also, Azura wasn't that kind of Daedra. Making him labor for her was only a way for him to be redeemed. Even Azura can use him to settle any business she deems important without worrying about a loss of a champion, but things are getting way too complicated right now, and his head can't process all that. He needed to focus on finding Wulfur first. She said it is a village surrounded by danger, but though its old name, it survived the long years. There, brothers unite and brothers separate. John thought fast but couldn't remember a village with an old name. He wasn't good with history, but he remembered something related to brothers. In the olden days, the founder of the Septim Empire, the great Tiber Septim, had fought his first official battle here in the Reach. At that time, he had a sworn brother called Hroldan who died in that battle. Even after Tiber Septim became the emperor and conquered the High Elves to achieve the apotheosis by mantling Lorkhan and becoming Talos, he still owed a debt to Hroldan. John could only think of one place where brothers unite and brothers separate, the place where Hroldan fell. Old Hroldan Village. He faced the east and flew with all his might trying to catch a glimpse of it, and there it was. Just at the time of sunset, John could see the town with barely few buildings intact, but it was abandoned. John felt a sense of crisis, but he kept looking around like a madman. There were too many corpses to check. John, there is a trial over there. Nefertiti picked up traces of battle, and John started to follow from the sky, and soon he saw it. Wulfur alone in a horde of enemies. Take Greed. Get him. John sent Nefertiti with Greed and raised both his hands up. His magic ran wild in his body and all gathered at the 2 output points on his palms. The spell he was casting was over his level, but if he gave it his all, he will make it. The sun faded behind him just as his spell started to form. Nefertiti reached Wulfur and used Greed from the shadow to skewer anyone that tried to harm him. Then the spell formed. Supernova. A bright fireball formed around him, swallowing everything as if the sun had risen once again. The people on the ground all looked up towards him. Wulfur, the Forsworn, the Hagravens, that strange wooden creature. Everyone was looking at the sun that rose from the west. Die. The sun exploded in a bright and colorful manner. Blue, purple, and red lights came from the explosions, forming a beautiful scene that people would worship despite knowing that death was imminent. Nefertiti enveloped Wulfur with Greed. The Hagravens enveloped themselves and Alaric with the Leshin and held to the ground, and the sky was lit from the land. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmezi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon.com/Eldokmezi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 330 Crisis 1. This is important, guys. I made a big mistake. That's right. Don Dokmasi made an oopsie-doopsie. My Elder Scrolls calendar was a bit off and I kept writing 4197, while it should have been 4198. John was born on 181, 1 year after the Second Treaty of Strozmakai. He was conscious of the reincarnation on 182, left rift in at 196, now it is 198 and he is 17. The game starts on 201 when John is 20. I will go and edit it later. 2. This is the chapter. Don't hate me after it. There is a catch for everything. 3. Big thanks to at Coffin for Fiend. The sky, lit, the land, scorched, corpses, charred and trees, burned. The scale of destruction was massive and the damage was fatal. John landed beside the black sphere made of greed and put his hand on it, drawing it back to himself. Under it, there was Nefertiti in beast form and Wulfur in a bloody form. Doing good, man? John asked. Wulfur looked at the crater that John created with his attack and gulped hard. Just a moment ago, there were tons of Forsworn and many things around here, and now it is just, well, let's just say that nothing will grow in this place for at least 50 years because of Magicka anomalies. Masterclass spells were nothing to scoff at, only a level below the forbidden spells and can pretty much be described the same. Yeah, John, our people. I am sorry for your loss, Wolf. Truly, it was you or nothing. Yes. Wulfur was still in shock and seemed to be developing a trauma. John took his hand and started healing him to the best of his healing skills. Nefertiti looked around and saw something strange. Look. She pointed at the ground where some tree started to grow in the crater. The three were taken aback as there was no tree that can grow this fast in reality, but one was actually doing so. John sensed something bad about to come and took the front. Nefertiti, my sword. Nefertiti carried the cube with her, and from it, she took out Bloodskull, giving it to John. He held the sword tightly and urged them to retreat. Once the tree grew large enough to be almost 7 meters tall, it started to transform and take shape as a humanoid tree with an animal skull as a head. The energy of that tree creature was eerie and dark. What in the? John said. No, it is that thing. Wulfur seemed on the brink of losing it. John, kill it before. Just as he was about to warn John, the ground shook and roots came up from the ground like nothing they ever saw before. A bunch of roots targeted Nefertiti and tried to form a prison on her, but she sank in the shadow and dodged the attack while growling at the less hin. Wulfur was also target, but already knew how to dodge the roots and kept dodging in zigzags. John's leg was caught by a root and thorns tried to penetrate his skin, but that didn't do much damage. He just let out his aura and obliterated the root and the ones that followed after it. Come out. John spoke in an angry manner towards the one who tried to control the less hin and sneak attack them. The less hin stopped attacking, and from the hole it grew from, a few figures came out. They were total of 13 as signals as John detected. 11 Hagravens, 1 Forsworn, and 1 freak-looking thing. Okay, a cursed Spriggon of sorts, some hags, a midget, and a cyclops. John's tone carried a hint of mockery, but he was actually at a wrathful state. Him. It is him. One of the Hagraven pointed at John and said, or rather screeched with her voice that sounded like a attacking raven or a very broken radio. Disregarding their hideous appearances of one of those super ugly storybook witches, John spoke rather carefully. Excuse me, young ladies. Mind telling me who am I again? The Hagravens were shooting resentful looks at John. He wasn't sure if it was the way they look or they are ready to suck his ghost out and trap it into a jar or something. It is him. Yes, him. The cat thing told us. It did. It did. Hunt him down. Devour his flesh. Leave his head. His head is a trophy. But strong, too strong. Cat thing didn't say that strong. 11 of us. Only him. No, he has a spirit. A young fae. The other man thing is also strong. Not strong enough. Only him. Hunt him down. Take his head. Trying to make sense of the conversation of the Hagravens, John realized that someone came to the Hagravens to deal with him. It was a cat thing, probably a Cagiate. His head is wanted as a trophy for the kill too. Someone wants him dead badly, mostly Eriker, but none in Eriker's syndicate is a Cagiate. They are not allowed in towns, especially Solitude. This eliminates some options, but if a Cagiate wanted him dead, then the Thalmor has a hand in it. Why? Elsewhere is part of the Aldmeri Dominion and Khajiit do the shady work for the Thalmor. As John was realizing that, Alaric, who saw John for the first time, realized something. He looked at the Hagraven and asked, "Wait, matron, did you just say that someone wanted this man dead, and we had to lure him by catching that man?" He pointed between Wulfur and John. "Wasn't it the will of the old gods?" The Hagravens realized the desperate tone of their war leader, so they explained things to their own convenience. "No, Blood Eagle, dear, Blood Eagle. We matrons take no words from cat things or man things. It was a messenger. Yes, a messenger. Cursed blood doesn't like him. Cursed blood wants him dead." John and Alaric could understand what cursed blood mean. John didn't really think too much of it, but Alaric seemed to have believed the hags. Cursed blood. Huh? That sorry excuse of a Daedric prince? Lord of shit, Malakath? John taunted the hags as he swore at Malakath. The Forsworn are Daedra worshippers, and they call the Daedra the old gods. They mainly worship Herson as well as Molagbal, Maroon's Dagon, Malakath, and Namara. Still, the situation was going to get messy. The 11 Hagravens are strong enemies, and Wulfur can barely stand. Nefertiti, take Wulfur away for now. Yes. She jumped at Wulfur and took him in the cube, then went away, leaving the space of John to fight freely. John may have used a lot of magicka to cast Supernova that annihilated the Forsworn force, but he alone was full of trump cards. "Don't let the Fae escape," a Hagraven shouted, pointing at Nefertiti, which irritated John. "Get in line, will you?" John threw Bloodskull with all his might at the Hagraven, splitting her head in half, then pulled the sword back with a chain made of greed. "Matron." Alaric panicked once he saw a Hagraven die. He looked at John with hate, but realized that John was a bit too hard for him to deal with. He became fully conscious at the hateful mage that obliterated his army in one go. You won't get away with this. Watch me. You killed many Reachmen. Alaric will rip your heart out for this. Let's see you try." John launched Bloodskull towards Alaric to kill him the same way as the Hagraven, but the large Leshin stepped in and blocked Bloodskull with its limbs. "Get away, Prince. Get away, get away." The Hagravens that were controlling the Leshin protected Alaric and concentrated at John. Now that 10 of them remained, they needed to kill John as soon as possible. John tried to levitate in the air, but facing 10 Hagravens proved to be a challenge. He waved Bloodskull many times and launched many energy slashes to face the large number of spells that were coming at him from every direction. Just as he got the chance, he teleported behind one of the hags and waved her sword, beheading her head clean. "Marla, kill him. Kill Man-Thing." The Hagravens were angry for losing 2 of their kind in one day. John kept avoiding all their spells until he was about to kill another one, but the Leshin interfered. Annoying thing. John avoided the Leshin's roots that were coming from all directions and jumped at the damn thing, cutting it from the shoulder to the waist. Grosh tried to sneak up on John with his large club, but John intercepted him easily. "Fusaro Grosh," Alaric shouted as he saw his brother get Thursday-ummed again. Alaric can be said as the only being who might have survived the unrelenting force 3 times. He can't shout again. Go on. The Hagravens pressured John more. "Excuse me. Why will Torshul?" John shouted the Leshin with the fire breath shout and torched the creature like a dragon. The Leshin got badly wounded and dived in the land again to suppress the flames. Now, the Hagravens had no tank to stop between them and John. Alaric saw the matrons in a bad situation, so he grabbed his spear and ran towards John like a hunter. Once he saw the chance, he performed his high leap to catch John off guard. "Seriously?" John sent Greed towards Alaric and grabbed him from the air, then slammed him on the ground once, then on the other side another slam, and so on until all of Alaric's body seemed to be on the brink of collapsing. John threw him away and focused on the remaining Hagravens. "Dangerous. Use the curses." The Hagravens tried their best and took out back soul gems each. Filled with the soul of human sacrifice, John's skin crawled once he felt the foul energy in the gems. Damn you, fucking witches. Allmaker. Realizing that he needed his magicka more than his sword and aura, John called for the blessing of the Allmaker, the root of power. His magicka surged up in an unimaginable speed, and all the magicka around him was sucked towards him like a typhoon. The Hagravens used the black soul gems at the same time, and powerful curses were all cast at John. Fuck. The pain was unimaginable. John can barely try to stop all the pressure that came from the Hagravens' trump card. His vision was being blinded. His body was being paralyzed. His blood was starting to flow backward. All sorts of foul curses were thrown at him by 9 angry Hagravens. The sword fell from his hands, and he held his head as if it was about to explode. Kill him. Kill. Kill. Damn Man-Thing killed Marla. The hags were putting their all-suppressing John, and he was facing the 9 of them with all what he could. The feat was simply unimaginable to block 9 powerful curses with simply the brute force of magicka. I'll fucking murder you, bitches. John got the hang of his magicka and roared in anger. His first move was to reverse a curse on a Hagraven with all his power, causing her to explode like a balloon. The second move was by dragging a Hagraven with telekinesis towards him and blasting her brain with a thunder cookie. The third move was by transforming Greed into a blaster and shooting a bolt of aura that tore a Hagraven by half. Alaric was simply terrified. He would do anything to stop John now. Without realizing it, he was carrying a dagger and stabbing it at John's back only for the dagger to get dent when it touched John's skin. The skin of a level 3, Jade Skin Stage, Dragon Frame Realm was simply not an easy thing to cut. John looked at Alaric with anger and slapped him 10 meters away. There were only 6 Hagravens left, they were annoyingly powerful. A Hagraven was a semi-Daedric creature with a heart that condensed a higher form of spiritual energy, but John can simply overpower that with his firm base that was built on tedious training and not some dark rituals. The last showdown with the 6 Hagraven was a show of pure brute magic force. John's root of power was starting to slow down and fade, and the black soul gems of the Hagravens started to crack. Break. John forced all his might in one final push, destroying 3 black soul gems and causing 3 Hagravens to fall into a major backlash. He only needed to wave Greed like a chain sword and killed them in one go. Now 3 Hagravens was very manageable. John's demonic mode was fully on, and he smiled viciously towards the last 3. He wanted to rip them apart left and right. Alaric, whose body was barely moving, had a clear vision of what happens. He saw the last 3 matrons at the tip of the Reaper's blade. He had nothing to do against someone like John. All his pride of being the leader of Karthspire Forsworn was getting shattered under the might of one Nord. It was a hateful feeling he never wanted to ever experience again, but it helped him understand that he was not as powerful as he thought, and if he can't kill a single Nord with John's level, then there is no way that he will be able to slay a famous warlord like Ulfric Stormcloak. Alaric lost his band of warriors to John and Wulfur, and the 11 pillar matrons of Karthspire were reduced to 3. He was devastated, but the enemy was a true monster. Crawling his body up, Alaric looked around with desperation until his eyes landed on something. A staff. One of the dead Hagravens carried that staff and used it to control the Leshin. Without thinking, Alaric jumped at the staff and connected himself to the Leshin that was healing underground. He managed to move him underground easily and made a plan. Retreat. Retreat to the rocks. Alaric called to the 3 Hagravens, who were desperate to survive. They retreated with him out of the crater while keeping John at bay as much as they could. The showdown switched from overpowering with force to casting quick flashes of destruction spells. Once Alaric made sure that he is in the right spot, he made sure to stay close to John for the sake of his only gambit. John didn't notice Alaric, and the latter started controlling the Leshin under beneath John, until he confirmed that John was fully focused on the Hagravens. The area they retreated to was directly under the mountain, and made sure that he reached the blind spot of John, then called out the Leshin. Now, the land beneath John shot up and countless vines warped themselves around his leg. John was annoyed by the fact and reached out to stop it, but the whole less hen came up and hugged onto John without any further notice. The hell? Get away. John struggled to free himself from the less hen to focus on the Hagravens, but he didn't notice what scheme was playing here. As soon as the less hen locked itself on John, it started to grow a countless amount of vines from its back. These vines connected themselves to the mountains and rocks around the place and started pulling at the same time. Asterisk screech. Star. The less hen was in pain, but all what could Alaric think of was the putting down John. And so, he brought down the mountain on John's head. John noticed only when it was too late. Shit. Get off me. He exploded his power and sent away the less hen, not caring about the Hagravens anymore. He was about to levitate, but discovered that Hagravens switched from offense to trying to stop him from using Magicka. Shit. No levitation or teleportation available. John barely avoided a large rock that was about to squish him. The fall turned from some rock fall to a complete avalanche. Alaric was in the heart of the danger zone following John. John was enraged and tried to behead the insolent Forsworn, but a large shadow dashed on and carried Alaric away. It was Grosh the Freak. John tried to avoid the avalanche, but large chunks of rocks started to fall on him. His senses of crisis were on full alarm and used the Thursdayum many times to push away falling rocks. The less hen brought itself together once again and attacked John to pin him down, and it managed to do so. An enormous shadow enveloped the less hen and John. He looked up only to see a large falling boulder coming at him. Shit. The only thing he could do was to press his sword to the ground and try to shield himself with anything. Not far from where John had the mountain on his head, Nefertiti was tending to Wulfur, and the later was resting to the rock. They felt the strong shaking of the earth and saw a whole mountain fall towards John. John. No. Wulfur panicked and ran towards John, but thud. Nefertiti collapsed. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmezi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon.com/Eldokmezi. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 331. Confusion. 12th of Sun's Dawn, February, 4E199. Winterhold. Since the day when chaos broke in the Reach, Thane John Dare of Winterhold was never seen again. Questions asked with barely anything answered. Why did the Forsworn start the chaos? Why did the Nordic clans of the Reach participate in the big fight? Where are John and Nefertiti? These questions were barely answered by the only known survivor who was suffering from PTSD, Wulfur. And 3 months passed. Right now, it is Sun's Dawn, February, of the new year, and no single progress on John's or Nefertiti's whereabouts. Are they alive? Yes. How do they know? Nerina's divination said so. Also, when the search trackers reached the avalanche site, no sign of John was found, and the place was all dug up. John was not there anymore. Can telepathy reach him? Supposedly, even if he is trapped in oblivion itself, but it doesn't reach him at all. Something is blocking it. What can the Dare Dragon Company do? Absolutely nothing. They can't be allowed in another hold with more than 200 men, which are far from enough to deal with the Forsworn. Even when they wanted to pass through the Pale, Jarl Skald the Elder blocked the roads. What about the Firemans? They are investigating and searching. What about Nerina? Alf Fyr forbade her from doing anything more than trying to search. That still didn't stop her from using Astral Protection, a masterclass mysticism spell, to look for John day after day. What about Johnrad and Hilda? Johnrad was the first to go and look for John. He simply took his katana and cloak, then left with a short note. Hilda could only leave her children, Thor and Idun, at Nerina's and Scotty's care before taking her ship, the Guilty Crown, and sailing to the Karth River. What about Alina, Jelinar, and Ela? Well, here is the thing. Alina can't leave Winterhold because she is nursing Jelinar. Why? On the way back to Winterhold, Jelinar collapsed on the ship coming home to Winterhold. The timing was confirmed to be the same time as the mountain fell on John. Ela ventured in the Reach about 5 times in those 3 months and fought with many Forsworn but couldn't find a single trace of John. Almost everyone in Winterhold was grasping on their hearts. If Thane John disappeared, things may get as bad as before. The central figure of the hold was known for both his valor and mischief. He was the central pillar of Winterhold's economy, and even though Jarl Career started to act righteously lately, none trusted him for good reasons. This situation that lasted for 3 months started to attract many enemies to Winterhold. If not that Winterhold is a desolate place, all colors of evil would have lurked in a long time ago. The questions about John Dare never stopped. Even Ulfric Stormcloak sent his people to talk to the Dare Dragon Company and see if there is anything they can assist with. Of course, Ulfric denied that he has any power to control the actions of Jarl Skald. It wasn't entirely a lie, but he didn't want to risk such an action very soon. None of that mattered anyway. John's family can take care of their own, and everyone was sure that John will show up. It was Nurina who had faith in that the most. Still, the most devastated person was none other than Wulfr. He witnessed everything and came out the lone survivor with a tragic story to tell. He was used to trick John in a trap. He fought for 3 days and lost all his men. He witnessed his brother get buried under a mountain, and the rest of the story was still tragic. Once he saw the mountain fall, he lost his sense of reason and ran towards it only to find Nefertiti collapsing behind him. Not sure what to do, Wulfr carried her and started moving the rubble despite his multiple injuries. He buried and buried without any results. The rubble was too much for him to handle. He looked back and saw the surviving 3 Hagravens trying to get their hands on Nefertiti, calling her Fae. He was enraged and threw his hammer at them, then grabbed Nefertiti and ran. The 3 Hagravens shape-shifted into 3 flocks of crows and started to chase him. He could only jump in the river and pass out only to find himself being saved by some companions who were investigating the chaos in the Reach. Once he woke up, he couldn't find Nefertiti and his mental condition became worse. He got identified and sent to Whiterun for healing. He made contact with John Battleborn and the news of what happened spread. Since his arrival to Winterhold, all he kept saying was, "It should have been me." He kept himself shut in his house and barely ate anything. Bjorna and Sviti were the only ones on daily contact with him. They struggled to put him back together. At Wulfr's front yard, Alina, Sviti, Bjorna were all gathered talking. "Have you told him yet?" Alina asked. Bjorna shook her head. "I still think it will cheer him up a bit. You two are older than me and John and can just get married before it happens," Alina said. "Are you mad? Wulfr would never marry if John is still missing," Bjorna said. "Bjorna, it has been 3 months. I can tell that you are pregnant already. Soon everyone will find out too." Bjorna nodded in silence. "How are things on your end?" Sviti asked. "The company is doing well. Some partners are skeptical about me and John's case, but as he said, nothing will stop the big machine." Alina said. "Do you need anything we can help with?" "No, just focus on Wulfr. I sense a storm coming at Winterhold, and we all should prepare. Tell Wulfr to man up and come help me." The two nodded to Alina. "How is Joel?" "Better. She can stand up now, but her fever is back. She vomits what she eats, so we give her easy things to digest. Ela comes by with meat she hunted, and we eat together, holding up and all." Alina seemed to be holding up well, different than Wulfr, who completely crumbled. "Thank you, Alina. We all depend on you." Alina nodded with a smile. The firekeeper mask, hiding her eyes, kept away a lot of sorrow and sadness to her alone. As she left Wulfr's place, she walked home stealthily in the empty street. Her face was expressionless and her steps were quiet. No one knew what she was thinking of in that state. All of a sudden, her firekeeper mask started to glow and her expressions turned fearful. Her eye powers were acting up again. "Damn it! Stop!" she groaned. But her eyes didn't stop at all. Right now, the firekeeper mask can't contain her powers like before. She was suffering from her own gifts. Ever since she was born, she was feared for her different eyes. When she was a child, she grew up mentally sooner than usual. She understood things earlier than any kid and got concerned about things a kid shouldn't get concerned about. When she was recognized by the cult of Kine, she was already too far to reach and became lonelier than before. When she became a teenager, Her beauty bloomed and her fame attracted many. When she learned magic and martial arts, she was peerless, which can be another word for friendless. She always suffered from the gifts she had until the day she met John, and she was always after him in many things. For the first time, she was in someone's shadow and she loved it. Not the loner anymore. Now, the light of her universe disappeared and all sorts of anxiety came at her. She was not a pathetic weak girl. She can fight all. Still, herself wasn't that easy opponent she can face. Alina took out the thing John gave to her before he leaves. She looked at it and felt it closely. A small trinket like that was the thread she held to John's will with. As she thought positively, her eyes started to get under control once again. She calmed down and walked home. Upon her arrival, she saw her griffin Locthar sleeping peacefully in the yard in its nest. His life was mostly playing and sleeping lately, even though she kept training him on battle and teaching him how to carry her on his back. It was already very big and would go hunting on its own from time to time. With a slight smile, Alina's mood became somewhat better and she walked in the house. She met Scotty, Jenna, and Nurina, who were taking care of the kids. Hilda's action of leaving the small 4-month-old kids was reckless and her mother scolded her. Alina passed to the main bedroom where Jellinar was. She saw her sitting on the bed and eating some soup. Feeling good, Alina sat beside Jellinar. "A little. How was your day?" Jellinar asked. "As usual." "Anything?" "No, nothing new." Jellinar was not in a talkative mood. Between brooding, crying, and falling ill, she did nothing else. Alina was at a loss of words and tried to comfort her partner, but she was not that much better herself on the inside. Alina and Jellinar snuggled together and kept it silent until one of them spoke. "I wonder how is he doing?" "Markarth, earlier this day." Markarth, a dwarven city built on the surface, unlike other underground dwarven cities. The Nords prized it ever since the disappearance of the Dwemer, but many others coveted it. The city was famous for its large silver mine run by the Silverblood clan. The mine also serves as a prison. The mine's silver or gets delivered from the prison to the smelter outside the mine to be made in ingots into the pockets of the Silverblood family. In the smelter, many workers come and go under the watching eyes of Mulish Grosschugers, the overseer of the smelter business. One of those newcomers was one the miners call Draugr-Face. Draugr-Face was a silent but abnormally large fellow, mostly mute. His left foot was replaced by a prosthetic one. Some of his left fingers were missing, but most importantly, the left side of his face was badly damaged to the point that he was called Draugr-Face. He always kept his face hidden though. Even though people were wondering what could put such a beast of a man down, all were fearful to approach him. The amount of, or that man can carry was not natural. His power transcends the common sense. Draugr-Face has only appeared 1 month ago, but he is the best worker in the smelter. Mulish Grosschugers wouldn't even try to scold him. Draugr-Face lives in the Warrens, the home of the homeless and beggars in Markarth. He always returns early and sits in lotus position meditating the magicka. No matter how long he tried, he could only meditate without the ability to get the magicka out of his body. He used to be a very talented mage, but now, he can't even help but to punch the ground in desperation. He took off his shirt and looked at the state of his body. There was that brown vine growing on his body and locking him from casting magic. Losing limbs was something manageable to him, as he always had a plan for everything. The problem is, none of those plans had the part where he can't cast magicka. He calmed his pointless anger and lied on the old bedroll. His prosthetic foot turned into a formless black matter that he used as a pillow. A lot needed to be done, and he has a devious plan. Darkness swelled up from his heart. He already became a monster, so why not act like one? He closed his eyes and let his head flow to the past. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmezi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon.com/Eldokmezi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 332, Trapped. An extra sponsored by at Omnisiac 10. Sorry for being late with it. Some may think that the past 3 months were hellish. Actually, everyone will think that way, but the only one who will disagree will be the man in question himself, John. How so? The answer to that question is not really complicated. Within a predicament, one finds opportunity, and that's what was it all about, opportunity. Don't get me wrong, John suffered the first few days in his journey ANF. He would hate to relive those first few days. Torture was a daily routine. Not that amateur-level torture of an imperial prison or a Nordic pit. It was a forsworn torture, the one you would end up a fluidless corpse after a few days of experience. But you are not John Dare, are you now? Oh, right. And by fluidless, it doesn't mean bloodless. It means everything. Ever seen a draugr? Yep, that fluidless. Even the best moisturizer in the world will face a true challenge with you. Also, one question. Ever wondered how Briarheart warriors are made? Now, let's hope that I piqued your interest. 3 months earlier. Dropping a mountain on someone is a bit of an overkill, right? Well, John didn't die. You probably guessed that by now, but don't you think it is wonderful? How in the blazes can anyone survive getting buried to begin with? From the lack of air to how much sand can go in your boots. Don't let the list start. The problems are endless. But thanks to the enemies of yesterday, John was dug up by the less hin. John regained consciousness a long time after he was dug up. Surely he was locked up in the weirdest way possible. His vision was not clear, but concentrating on his body revealed what happened to him. Nope, you guessed wrong. His limbs were all still intact. His only injury was a concussion in his head that disturbed his senses greatly. Where the ARG? And here it came, the first setback. Due to his head injury, whenever he tries to talk, a massive headache strikes like a real bitch. Now imagine him shouting a Thursdayum. No, wait. Don't. Thursdayum is a baha-ha-ha-hot idea. Where were we? Oh, yes. John was locked up in a tree trunk. Not like he was inside of it. No, he was stuck in the trunk from outside as it grew around some of his body parts. Now you might be thinking, shouldn't John just go kaboom and use his amazing brute physical strength to shatter the mere wood? Well, that sounded like a good idea to him too. ARG. Shit. Just as he tried to break free, many things stabbed into his body. Another setback. Brute force is out of the question. Most likely the tree itself was stabbing him by a thorny vine warped going around his body. What about magic, battle spirit, or godly blessings? That damn vine was really something. John could see that the thorns on the vine have dug through his tough skin, draining his magicka directly. And that's the third setback. No magic, no brute force, and no Thursdayum. Some might think this can't get any worse, but still things are way worse than anyone can think. John can't contact the augur for some reason, and Shadow is not picking up. Also, the Haven Cube should be with Nefertiti, as she used it to take Wolfer away from the fight. Now, the word stranded can describe John's situation really well, but it wasn't all that bad. There is always company. As his senses started to recover slowly, the place around him started to get more visible. He was in some sort of a grove in a cave with barely any rays of sunlight coming down from the gabs illuminating the hellish place around him. To think that this was Nirn and not oblivion is a wonder on its own. Well, at least he got some company out of it. There were bodies, a lot of them. Bodies stuck with him in the trunk of the tree, bodies skewered through its branches, bodies pinned by its roots, bodies hanged by its vines. It was terrifying and mysterious. His rock-solid mentality was put to the test for the first time since he was in his own mind realm. Thoughts and fears, prayers and curses, panic. Yes, panic. This was no ordinary tree. Its leaves were blood red and its wood moved like living organs. The tree had strange fruits that seemed to be the reason why such a demonic tree wad cultivated on human bodies. Awake. He is awake. God blood. He is awake. A Hagraven came from the entrance of the cave. It looked at John and called him a weird name. As it called, other hags started to come to the cave and kept looking at John. Just by their ugly looks, one can learn the phenomenon opposite to having a boner. Yes, it is that bad. One of the hags went to John with an eerie smile on its ever-so-disgusting face, It pointed one of its claws towards John's right shoulder and stabbed in his flesh with it. Sadly for the hag, its claw broke. Grr. Hateful. Hateful. It started screaming as it tried to put the claw back desperately. The reason was obvious. John's meditative training is in the jade skin stage. His skin is that hard. Maybe the thorns on the tree are stronger than the claws of the hags, but that doesn't mean they would give up. Another hag came out with a black dagger that gave of a greenish luster. Even for John, who was blocked from magic, he felt that the dagger is pure evil and it would wound him badly. John even recognized the dagger. Nettlebane. Shit. A cursed and very old dagger that can do terrible kinds of damage. John would do anything to not get touched by that blade, but sadly there isn't anything he can do. No, there was one thing. The only energy that he can control is the essence energy in his body. He hurriedly circulated the essence energy inside him and created a layer around his bones and organs. He was even to shift his organs to avoid vital injuries. The hag holding Nettlebane came at John and stabbed his shoulder. His skin showed some resistance at first, but it was tore under Nettlebane. John quivered and groaned in pain, but the hag never stopped until the Nettlebane went in an inch at least. It then took the dagger out and licked the blood on it. The hag turned towards the other ones and shouted in its evil voice, "God blood." The hags cheered in joy. John was trying to stay conscious and get a hint of what is going on. Suddenly calling his blood God blood is really fucked up, looking at how the hags treat the vessel of whatever that blood is. Still, what kind of situation is that? God blood? Maybe because of him being a Dragonborn that his blood is godly, or whatever. What other explanation can it be? Still, that was not the current problem. That hag was raising the blade again. Fuck. Arg. My head. The hag started stabbing at other parts on John without targeting vitals. It skillfully made John bleed and his blood flowed on the demonic tree. Between his state of discomfort, not being able to cast magic, head concussion, speaking problems, being stabbed like that was and bleeding a lot was the all drawing his senses away, yet he fought it all and somehow managed to survive till the end. Finally, the hags left him on the tree with the other corpses. All the quivering and resisting made the thorny vines stab him deeper and deeper, numbing him from all pain. Still, he was ashen white and his body was cold after the horrible experience. All that time, he managed to protect his vitals by his inner energy and survived what would kill anyone else. Just as soon as he released his inner essence energy to try to heal himself from the inside, he sensed another energy invading his body. The hell? John directed his essence energy towards it and started fighting it away. The invading energy seemed to be very violent and tried to invade his body from all sides. John could estimate that this energy came through the vines, and it is mostly the tree's energy. Its purpose was to devastate him from the inside and prey on his essence bit by bit. John was enraged and realized that this evil tree is trying to consume him like the other corpses around him. Not that he expected any less, but the energy of the tree was tricky. If he resisted it too much, the thorny vines would dig in him. Yes, the situation is bad, but John smiled for some reason. He would laugh if he can too. Maybe essence energy and bodily fluids are the tree's favorite food, but John found a ray of hope in that demonic tree. Its energy is vital podomic energy. PayPal, 50 SS equals $1. PayPal, me/Eldokmezi. Patreon, remove the dash. Patreon.com/Eldokmezi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 333, Anxiety. Extra chapter, every new, plus $10, patron or PayPal. Extra chapter, 5,000 votes. Extra chapter, 8,000 votes. Hey, Draugr-face. Workday is over. Crawl back to your crypt. Hey, don't say that. What? Guy's an idiot. Doesn't talk, doesn't eat. Think he scares me? Mommy. Thud. Buzz off. You two pieces of shit. Work as much as he does, then complain. The overseer stuck up for Draugr-face. Today was a usual day in Markarth. John goes up. Everyone calls him Draugr Face. He works in silence, steals some money and stuff, then goes back to the Warrens at the end of the day. He grew up in Riften, and Markarth was very similar to Riften. Tycoon family, incompetent jarls and evil lurking everywhere. Still, out of his last month's daily routine, John had a break off this day. He was still looking for a way to rid himself of those shackles around him. The vines that wrapped his body were really limiting him way too much. Still, the new magic he discovered after he broke through the Jade Skin stage was something terrifying. A natural ability that has a lot of potential if he managed to learn it properly. But that wasn't the time for research, it was the time for healing. John had an appointment with the alchemist. Come in. This way. Just as he arrived at the Hag's Cure, an alchemy shop in Markarth, the owner Bothila invited him in. Bothila was an old reach man that is not associated with the Forsworn, so John went to her seeking a cure. Come in here. The place is empty. Just me and my assistant. John walked in wearing his work clothes that he has nothing other than them and hiding his head with a hood. Once he sat where Bothila pointed, he removed the hood and the shirt. Sigh. Poor boy. Bothila sighed and checked John's body. The injuries on your fingers and left leg are clean despite your line of work. I am amazed you didn't get any inflammation or infection. Also, the skin on your face and your left side will get its liveliness soon. Just stick to the medicine. John nodded. Did you bring enough money? John nodded again. Then we can start. Just close your eyes and rest. A couple more sessions and your skull will heal, and we will hear your voice. Bothila treated John kindly, and he was thankful for her actions. Kindness didn't come without money, though. Also, I contacted some people regarding these vines growing on your body. I don't know what happened for them to be alive on you as a host. They have clearly transformed from plants to parasites now. It is unheard of, so don't have high hopes. I am still wondering, how did that happen to you in the first place? The questions of Bothila were many, as any person should have. John can answer some, can't answer some, and don't want to answer some. Still, those answers took his memory way back. 3 months ago. The Hagravens would surely show day after day to make sure that the process is going smoothly, but what they didn't foresee was John as lively as ever while being stuck in the trunk of the tree for more than 3 days. He didn't look tired or hungry, his eyes were still bright and didn't show any signs of discomfort. Explaining it as John is a powerful enemy and possessed the blood of a god, the Hagravens discarded their worries as good fortune for the tree they are cultivating on dead bodies. A day or two passed, and the visitor this time was not the hags, but rather a face that John could recognize, Alaric of Karthspire and his freak brother Grosh. Look, Grosh. The Nord who hurt you. We captured him. Grosh. Grosh. Ha ha ha. I know, right? Their victory over John came at a high price, 300 Forsworn and 8 Hagravens for just a single man. Alaric bitterly called it a victory, but he knew better. Every Forsworn family held a funeral because of that man ever so comfortably resting in a tree. Only the most heinous lawbreakers, traitors, and Nords get to be offered to the trees. Consider yourself lucky, Alaric said. He looked at John. Red hair was like the flowing blood on a battlefield and eyes gleaming blue, but still looked down at Alaric. To him, John seemed younger than what his size would give off, but it didn't matter to Alaric. John was a disaster. John looked at Alaric, a midget for a savage whose hair was unkempt and face was full with red war paint that resembled a bird. He stood proud in front of John as if he was examining his trophy. Motherfucker. You cost me a lot of men, but here you are, broken and conquered like all you Nords should be, Alaric said, taunting John. John closed his eyes with no interest in Alaric. Why even bother with a small fry? Alaric didn't like John's reaction and pressed on. The matrons call you Godblood, right? Not sure where is that coming from, but you are one of those ones blessed by Nord gods, right? Hee hee. Look at you now. Not even able to break free. Do you know what these trees are called? They are the Briarheart trees. Once a person like you is put on one of those trees, the tree will eat them, and what's left will turn into a piece of garbage. You will be the largest piece of Nord garbage we ever had. As Alaric finished, John opened his eyes and examined the tree closely, then understood what kind of a tree it was. He didn't see any tree like that in the game, and the Reachmen kept the matters regarding the Briarheart warriors a closely guarded secret. We make bets on how long will it take you to die, and how many hearts will the tree give us from you. Oh, this will be magnificent. I have high hopes of you. Alaric kept provoking John with words to no avail. It was understandable. John is strong, and strong people are hard to break. There is no way the Nord who destroyed his best warriors would crumble that easily. Still, Alaric had one last thing to ask. Tell me, you know that man they call Ulfric? Ulfric Stormcloak, that menace. He can shout like you, and that man you came to save. Did you learn from him? Is he your leaders? Don't worry, you can't shout. The tree won't let you anyway. So, that man, can I kill him? Alaric asked with frenzied eyes. It was his sole purpose of being after all. Kill Ulfric and avenging everything. He honed his skill for many years and killed a lot of Nords, but none were like John and Wulfur. Of course, it was natural for him to think that they are related to his figure of the devil, but John's response made him very uncomfortable. John's eyes were showing mockery, and he moved his head as if saying, "Sure, why not?" Alaric felt upset about John's haughty reaction that didn't seem like a prisoner in his hand. Just you wait. I will stick that blade in Ulfric's heart, and those who stand between me and him. But first, I will have the satisfaction of seeing you dying slowly. Alaric turned up and was about to leave, but he remembered something and picked up a rag he brought with him. Almost forgot. We dug that up with you. Nice blade. In his hand, Alaric held Bloodskull. I will be keeping it from now on, a sword worthy of Alaric, the Blood Eagle. I am not great with naming, and I know that you have taken some sort of silence oath, so I will name this sword after me, Blood Eagle. Isn't that nice, Grosh? Grosh. I knew you would agree with me. Alaric was satisfied with what he did. Claiming another warrior's weapon in front of him without killing him is no different than staining his honor and name. Alaric took Bloodskull in front of John and called it Blood Eagle after himself. John wasn't amused with the fact, but there is no way. Alaric can use Bloodskull anyway. It was John's personal weapon for a good reason. Alaric turned to John with the sword in his hand and pointed it at John's shoulder. I don't want to be called a thief, but I think this weapon can injure you unlike ordinary ones. That's why I will use it to shed some blood and claim it mine. No dishonor to you in that. Alaric said so and pressed the sword at John's shoulder. Grosh. Grosh felt a bad premonition and tried to pull Alaric away from John, but he was too late. John smiled faintly as the sword touched his shoulder and used the essence energy inside him to activate the aura leftovers in Bloodskull. Just like that, a sphere of red tyrant aura exploded from the sword and blasted everyone around it. Alaric and Grosh were pushed back a few steps, but the tree and John were right as they were. Groan. The thorny vines tightened itself at John for doing such a naughty move and caused him to groan. Alaric, who caused this, was ashen pale. Not only the blade obey its master, but the dormant aura was mighty. Alaric remembered vividly what happened a few days ago when he faced John in battle, and the festive mood he was in was shattered. He looked between Bloodskull and John as if he was defeated in a manhood contest. John kept the expressionless act after the thorny vines stopped tightening on him. Alaric was enraged, but the hag soon showed up and demanded that he leave the Briarheart trees and saplings without causing a problem. Alaric looked at John hatefully before turning and leaving with Grosh. Still, John saw something that made him groan and look at Grosh with strong killing intent. Alaric and Grosh noticed what John was looking at. Alaric thought it would be a good way to make a comeback at John. He took the hammer that was hanging on Grosh's back and showed it off. This is really a good hammer, befitting of my mighty brother. We took it from the area. Seems like its former owner won't be needing it anymore. Alaric smiled and gave the warhammer back to Grosh. This was Wulfur's warhammer, the champion's cudgel. Alaric's words made John feel like a fire was burning in his abdomen. He tried to convince himself that Wulfur and Nefertiti have escaped and will get help soon, but he never thought that Wulfur's hammer would appear here. He was now angry and worried. Because of his negative emotions, his inner resistance to the Briarheart tree, he was stuck and almost crumbled, and the tree's energy almost ravaged through his body. John was able to calm himself, but his heart, he was really worried, and the only thing he can do was to pray or hope for Wolfer's safety. If he can talk, he would pray, but he hasn't prayed for almost 18 years. Not even sure his prayers would be heard in a foreign word, but he prayed anyway. Just as he calmed down, he started to think of himself right now. He needed a plan, and do not expect any kind of help. The worst-case scenario, he is pre-assumed dead. He knew his family will do some chaotic actions, but he would manage no matter what. With such a mentality, John regained his senses and focused on the tree and its pedomic energy that he long since coveted. This is his opportunity. Either he eats the tree, or the tree eats him. 3 months forward, Winterhold. John's guess wasn't off. His family was doing all it could. When he disappeared 3 months ago, all the burdens of Winterhold fell on Alina. She had her clan, the Firemane younger generation that is now all present in Winterhold. She had John's influence. She had all the power to command any creature in Winterhold. Even the Jarl was respectful towards her more than John. A lady is a lady after all, and she was the overlady of Winterhold, daughter of Patriarch Sigurd Moonblade and woman of John Dare, the strongest two in Winterhold. Still, none could fill that void anymore. John and Nefertiti are missing, which means half of the family is gone. Jellinar is bedridden and her situation is unstable with no known reason at all. Even Jellinar's teacher Nerillion said he has no logical explanation for her illness, and he came every day to check and prepare the medicine. Just who to cry or run to when there is none she can lean on anymore. She is not even 18 yet, and her world is facing a disaster. When she went to Nurina for help, the latter told her to be patient and just hold on. Is it possible? She thought. Well, the act of thinking was something she wanted to avoid at all costs. She started to hate Winterhold, that she is running for the sake of nothing, but leaving her loved ones facing God knows what suffer. Is running the damn hold even worth it at that point? There is no point in making a beautiful garden for a broken palace. She needed peace, a timeout, a short escape. She opened the window and teleported back to the house yard. Lochther, up. Without prior notice, she jumped on Lochther and it flew carrying her. Destination? Her favorite palace in this world, the Eldergleam Sanctuary. PayPal. Me/Eldokmezi. Patreon. Remove. Patreon.com/Eldokmezi. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 334, Gains. Extra Chapter. Every new, plus $10, Patron or PayPal. Extra Chapter, 5,000 votes. Extra Chapter, 8,000 votes. How is your hearing now? Is your voice coming without a problem? Yes, thank you. A little better. Good kid. Don't be rash just yet. One more session, and you will be just fine. John nodded and left the Hag's Cure, going back to the Warrens. He was a large person and was known in the Warrens as someone who can launch people with a slap. None would stand in his way, but some would still try to act as his underlings like annoying pests. John was only busy meditating anyway. His mood was clear and set on a series of goals, getting healed up, getting rid of those vines, and finally, finishing the third labor. But before one gets revenge, one must fill his growling belly. John went out to the market and found some clean food stall, and here it comes. John is a picky eater, even if it is the apocalypse, and had high standards in food, a habit that reincarnated with him. John took the best food he can get and walked up the city to a certain spot. There some beggars and miners would go and pick a seat to the anticipated performance. It was under the balcony of the Temple of Dibella, the goddess of love, art, and beauty. Every few nights, the priestesses of Dibella would gather up at the balcony with the Sibyl of Dibella to perform a musical prayer to Dibella. While only some of the female members of the cult of Dibella can attend these prayers, no one else is allowed. Still, the beggars are the only ones who get to sit under the balcony and listen. John also wanted to hear the music. He went up the stairway to the temple and walked around the cliff to the area where the beggars sit. He saw a few beggars already up here, yet one glance at the giant made them run like ants. John didn't mean to scare them, but it was not bad anyway. He can pick the comfiest rock to set on. Back on the balcony, the priestesses were gathering on wooden chairs lined up in a circle. They weren't many of them, but from the way they spoke to someone, John realized that there is someone important among them. "We are honored that you joined us this night for the hymn, my lady, but aren't you going to get tired? You still haven't recovered yet." A priestess spoke. "It is okay, Senna. If I don't go out, the little one won't go out. See, she is so scared of people." "But, my lady, since when did we start to pick up homeless kids? Shouldn't you at least send to the steward of the keep to enlist her to the orphanage?" Senna seemed protesting. "Senna, that's enough." Another voice joined the conversation. "Hamal? The words of the Sibyl of Dibella are the words of Dibella. Don't argue a lot. Now, let's start. Here, little one. You can play with that drum. Don't break it." The priestesses ended their conversation and started playing calm and beautiful music. John felt peaceful listening to it, and he took some of his warm food and ate quietly and started thinking of what happened last time he heard music. 2 months ago, surprising himself and shaming any other living organism on Tamriel, John survived for a full month in that tree. Even though he should have died from hunger and thirst, even though his muscles should have got badly damaged and blood stopped flowing in them from the way he was put in the tree, even though he should have bled too much to live, even though the Briarheart tree should have sucked his life force and turned him into a lifeless husk of a corpse, he still managed to live. Seeing something unbelievable, the hags and the Forsworn were at their wits' end. They tried to kill John multiple times during the last month, but he was too much to deal with. Ordinary weapons can't hurt his skin. Nettlebane can kill him, but even the cursed blade can't make him bleed anymore. Just how much terror can that Nord give them? As their last attempt, Alaric stabbed John at the heart, but John didn't die. John kept looking down Alaric, who was traumatized that day. The Hagravens then had to step in and seal John along with the tree. They couldn't understand what John was, so they kept everyone clear from him. John got into their heads without even doing anything. Well, at least they didn't behead me, ignorant savages. Just how on Nirn could John not bleed to death, getting an organ failure, or surviving a stab to the heart? The answer was not simple at all. John himself was the most impressed one, as he knew the secrets behind all that. Knowing the truth behind the trick can sometimes be underwhelming, but John was impressed with his progress. To survive, he needed energy, and he happened to be surrounded by his favorite source, the vital podomic energy. To empower his human machine, he needs food. Food becomes energy in the cells, but there were various kinds of energies in the body, but the most important one is the essence energy that comes from the soul. To keep his system alive, John started a trial and error process on how to distribute his essence energy on the cells. It was tedious work at first, but he later felt his body condition feel better. How to acquire more energy was all depending on the Briarheart tree. John kept absorbing the vital podomic energy that was assaulting him and replenished his essence energy. The Briarheart tree also managed to absorb some of John's essence energy, but he was superior in the term of manipulating energy. He was only relying on the tree trimming to assaulting him because he can't cast a spell to absorb the podomic energy it has. If the tree was not a mindless being, it should have known better and stopped attacking him, let him die from the lack of energy. The next problem that John met was the bleeding. He couldn't stop the hags from stabbing him every day to get some god blood on the tree. He was really annoyed with it, and replenishing the blood with essence energy was a pain. The answer to that was trying to achieve an inner control over his blood. He went deeper with his meditating, deeper than wherever he went before, and started unraveling the mysteries of the human body. He started concentrating on the regeneration of the cells, and how can he control things that he never controlled before. His research was simple and crude, but very fruitful. He learned the ways of the blood and how to manipulate it inside his body, how to stop the flow, how to hasten it, how to avoid certain blood vessels altogether, and even how to detect any harmful microorganisms inside the blood. Just like that, when the hags tried to cut him for blood, only a few drops fell and nothing else happened. In his free time of fighting off the tree's energy and cultivating it inside him, John's research went further and allowed him to control some parts of his body that were impossible to control, like how to move his organs from inside. Shifting his heart's place was the secret why he didn't die when Alaric stabbed him where the heart should be. The body has two kinds of organs, those which follow the will of the person and those which are programmed to do their thing. John can now control most of those organs, and skillfully too. This was also the secret of how he avoids muscle atrophy. By that point, the hag started to think that John is an immortal and started to use some magic on him which posed him no threat. The hags used the hedge magic that doesn't fall under any school of magic, and was quite famous between the orcs and the reachmen. The term hedge magic can describe any unusual forms of magic that are not widely used in the community of mages. John, being the magic genius he is, observed the hedge magic with all its wrong practices and strange hacks. He started to get a basic idea around it too. It was simply magic practiced in a mix of primal and ancient ways, containing many lost secrets in the art. John saw some aspects of necromancy, prison magic, blood magic, curses, voodoo, astral protections, sacrificial ritual and chanting rites, and many things. The hags would sing scary songs and make tricky spells and command hidden forces. John was simply impressed by his captors for a while, until he unraveled most of the mysteries and then lost his interest. All this and that happened in the last month. His visitors were barely anyone in turning two. The only person who would come was Grosh. John stopped seeing him as a freak once he learning that he was transformed from a normal kid to such a creature by the hags. Not even aware of his own age, Grosh always acted like a kid and would bring kids to play in the Briarheart Grove too. The Forsworn always lived this way anyway. John didn't care about them and would kill them as soon as he gets the chance to do so. And like that, a month passed. From the hags to Grosh and Alaric, to the kids that play with Grosh, John had no visitor interesting enough for him to open his eyes to. Or at least that was the case until someone finally decided to visit. "Oh, old friend, you look like a mess." A black serpent appeared before John. John raised his head and grinned. "You should have seen the other guys." The serpent wasn't taken aback, as it had seen how John descended on a forsworn army and killed them. "Planning to leave anytime soon?" "Not yet. Need some help." "And help I shall offer." The black serpent turned into a black fox and leaped on the Briarheart tree, then reached a gap and flowed in like a liquid. "There are some things you need to know?" "Yeah. Welcome back, Shadow." Present time. Eastmarch, Eldergleam Sanctuary. Lochther flew away to play away from the sanctuary as Alina walked in. The acolytes of Kine that were stationed around the area all recognized Alina and Lochther and withdrew immediately from the sanctuary. The Sibyl of Kine was officially their spiritual leader, so it was natural to bother her or her annoying family, but it was known around Skyrim what happened to John and how Alina was carrying all the burdens after he disappeared. As she was sure that Lochther and the acolytes are away, Alina took off the Firekeeper mask, and her flawless face and red ruby eyes were revealed. How beautiful can a girl be? One may ask. Well, beauty is a gift from God as anything else, so there is no fixed scale. With that, it is safe to say that despite being the Sibyl of Kine, Dibella has done one hell of a job on Alina. But today that beauty was clouded by a lot of sadness. Alina, who suppressed her tears all that time, sat on the side of the pond at the center of the sanctuary and rested her head on a root of the Eldergleam. She started remembering all her favorite times with John, like how they got on the wrong foot when they met for the first time and how bad she was defeated when she challenged him on the title of the Nerina's Legacy Apprentice. There was that time when her face veil fell and a fight almost broke between her overprotective father and John over her. The times they fought for Winterhold together, the travels they had together, the places, the study, the drinking, the sex, the strange stuff he showed her. Now that all this was gone, bitterness only took its place. She didn't know why, but her memories came in that order. Burdened by all that, her chest got tightened. She stood up and undid her dress, and it fell around her feet. Her graceful figure was revealed to no man's eyes other than John's, and she touched her sides as he liked to cuddle with her all night, missing his touch and teasing. Waving around her hair that reached her knees, Alina jumped in the water. The water was cold, but not too cold. It gave her the comfort she needed. The world underwater was calm and slow. It could contain all her thoughts and worries. She felt like it wouldn't hurt if she stayed under the water for a little longer, just a little bit of that peace. Sadly, you will hurt yourself if you don't breathe. Not sure how, a voice talked to her from behind her shoulder. Alina panicked and jumped out of the water, standing on its surface by her. Frost steps, spell. Magic was ready to be cast at whoever appears, and soon someone appeared. From the pond she was diving in. Another woman appeared and rose from the water looking at Alina. Alina couldn't process how can anyone look at her in the eye without getting harmed, but just some time ago when she met Alf Fyr, the latter made eye contact with Alina and felt a little tingle. John was as special as Alina, if not more, and Alf was insanely powerful. This meant that the woman in front of Alina right now is as strong as Alf at the very least. I must run. Why would someone so strong sneak up on her if not for bad intentions? Alina stomped on the water and pushed a strong frost force on the woman before jumping away. No, wait. The woman panicked, but as soon as the attack reached her, it went through her without it touching her at all. A space mage? Alina was stunned, but she knew she was in trouble if a space mage chased her. She needed to hinder the woman for enough time, then run out of the detection range. Please listen. She manipulated the water with telekinesis and used it to make a cage and froze it with essence energy. Even a space mage can't walk through that. This was all done as Alina was performing textbook footwork on the water and jumped away to land on one of the large roots of the eldergleam tree. She picked her dress and was about to run, but suddenly, the root moved on its own and threw Alina away. Geez, I said stop moving. And it is rude to step on someone's root in their home. Didn't anyone teach you that? The woman who was caged in a frost cage destroyed it by moving the root while shouting at Alina. Alina has already landed on her head but stuck up like a dork. Still, as soon as she heard the woman speaking, she shot up with a face full of mud and hair full of leaves. She spat out some grass before speaking. Wait. You said your root? Your home? Alina was fully in panic. That's right, young one. I, Gleam, am the elder of this sanctuary. It is my home. Alina heard Gleam, an elder, then collapsed in the water. PayPal, me/eldokmezi. Patreon, remove. Patreon.com/eldokmezi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 335, Break. Extra Chapter, Every New, plus $10, Patron or PayPal. Extra Chapter, 5,000 votes. Extra Chapter, 8,000 votes. You came, come in. Someone is waiting for you. For me? Yes, come in. Bothila invited John into her store. In there, John saw two beautiful ladies, one young and one old. They were in yellow priest habits and looked quite peaceful. Ladies, this is the man I talked to you about. He was a merchant traveling and got attacked by some hugravens who trapped him in a briarheart tree. He managed to break free, but he got some vines leeching on his body, and they are weakening him greatly. I thought to bring him today for Lady Sybil to see him. Bothila spoke to the old woman. Sybil? John looked at the old woman and understood who she is. The Sybil of Dibella, the spiritual leader of the cult of Dibella in Skyrim, a very respected and generous figure. The old woman nodded and spoke. Child, can I see that? John hesitated for a bit, but he then removed his shirt and showed his upper half to the priestesses. Dibella, the young priestess gasped from shock, and the old one narrowed her eyes. Around John's body, a large vine grew like a lively external organ. It was red and green with thorns growing from it. One can tell that the vine was having blood flowing through it. How strange. The Sybil of Dibella concentrated on the vine and thought. The young priestess, however, kept looking at John's body with a daze. The left half of John's body was paler than his right half. His left foot and some fingers of the left hand were missing. There were many wounds and claw marks that barely healed, as well as over 20 stab mark. One of them was in the heart. You got stabbed in the heart and lived? She looked at John as if he is a monster. When he entered, she was about to cuss at Bothila for bringing a beggar-like man in the presence of the Sibyl of Dibella, but that was not the case anymore. John seemed like a survivalist who just has been through a tough experience. Have you been through Oblivion by any chance? The priestess asked. 3 times, without a scratch. This is all our dear planet Nern, John said in self-mockery. He hasn't lost his sense of humor. Haha, Bothila said. Last month, the guards picked him from the gates with many wounds. I treated him from over a dozen infections and curses, yet he seemed to not be even bothered about them and kept cracking jokes. Bothila meant to ease up young priestess's worry, only to find her face turning pale. My goodness, a dozen infection and curses? You are still alive. John smiled and didn't reply. He also suffered a concussion that caused him to not be able to talk and hear properly. Still, he lived through it. The young priestess wasn't willing to ask anymore. John's well-endowed body could tell that young priestess a lot already. This man was both a warrior and a rich person. A priestess of Dibella can tell, after all. They are the ones versed in the ways of love, art, and beauty after all. I see. The Sibyl of Dibella seemed to have finished her diagnosis. She looked at John and spoke. I am sorry, child. I can't help you. Compared to the Temple of Mara and the Temple of Kinnereth, our temple is the least versed in the ways of healing. Still, that is too advanced for any healer. If my estimation is correct, those vines are already a part of you rather than the tree they grew from. Your blood flows into them, and your power is sealed by them. It is like a harmful being that grew attached to your blood. Also, your blood seems to be very special, she said. John felt a bit tight in his chest. He nodded and replied, I am aware of my blood. You do? Yes. But do you mean that the vine is part of my astral body? Astral body? The Sibyl didn't understand the term. My soul. Is this vine sharing my soul with me? John asked. The Sibyl's face became long, but she nodded in the end. I didn't think you would understand it. I didn't want to worry you from the start. John nodded. I am a mystic. I understand. Thank you. John's voice was a bit depressed as he said so. He didn't want to show it and turned his head away. It is okay, child. I wish you luck, the Sibyl said, and stood up from her seat to talk with Bothila. I talked to you about that girl, right? The one our temple picked some time ago. She is really stubborn and very picky about food. She eats the meat raw sometimes and can be very violent. She speaks a few words and sometimes has a fever or a fit of anger. Can you come and see her, Bothila? I am not sure if she is some Reach native or lost traveler. Yes, Lady Sibyl. I will make sure to visit you after I finish with the Mr. here. Thank you. I am off. The Sibyl turned around and left, but before she gets out, she turned to John. I don't want to give you false hope, but there is a young friend of mine who lives in Eastmarch or Winterhold. She is an excellent healer and someone I recommend to anyone with a state like yours. She is known as the Sibyl of Kine. Alina? John was taken aback from the woman's statement, and she was taken aback from his question. It seems you and I have some mutual friend, child. Yeah, I can't let her see me this way. John's voice was filled with sadness, and his hand hung down. I see, the Sibyl said and spoke again, but something strange happened. Her voice was hers, but her tone and aura were different. Child, you are bound to walk the hard way and carve the hard fate. Your fate is your dream, and your dream is your way. Walk the way as we of old once did, and wish upon the stars, as your wish is a will granted on your body and land. They are the same, and one they ever will be. Dragons you may rob, their might you may claim, their hearts you may conquer, their way you may walk, and stars you may reach. Walk and dream. The Sibyl said something the nun understood. Her voice was ethereal and captivating. It kept ringing in John's mind. Still, once she was done, her aura returned normal, and she looked around for a bit, then smiled and excused herself out. John was still captured at the moment. Last time he heard such an ethereal voice was not too long ago. Just once a month ago on that day. 1 month ago. As Shadow returned to John, things became much better. From the beginning, when the mountain collapsed on John, Shadow jumped into greed and possessed it to try and keep John alive under the rubble. Following its policy of not interfering too much, Shadow kept an eye on the Forsworn as they took John and kept them monitoring where they went and how to get out of that place. Once Shadow found a way for John, he leached back on him and told him everything about his place. He also kindly did some recon and planned an escape route for John. John, on the other hand, was preparing himself for something big. Now that greed is close to him, he could spread it under the Briarheart Grove and link himself to every Briarheart tree and sapling around. He started to invade them and take their viral podomic energy. In a few days, the small sapling and trees started to die in a charred state, as if they were being burnt from the inside. The Hagravens panicked, but none could ever guess that it was his doing. He was trapped in a tree, and it started to grow and cover most of his body, leaving only his face sticking out. Also, his cultivation level advanced like a rocket. Last night, he advanced to the new stage of, and his body filled with vigor. Still, he didn't break out from the tree. The new stage is called the Ebon Blood stage. It focused on enhancing the blood, and its breakthrough came in the form of spitting out a mouthful of black foul blood. When the hags saw that, they seemed happy, thinking that John is finally dying and the large tree he was in is going to grow some mighty Briarheart seeds, but they can't be more wrong. John's increase of power required a more podomic energy, and he was consuming the Briarheart Grove at a maddened state. He was focused, but he had some annoying guests that would cause him a headache every now and then. First, there was Shadow, his talkative friend. There was Grosh and the Forsworn children who still come to play in the Briarheart Grove. From the looks of it, Grosh is tasked by cleaning the grove, and the children tend to sneak and play with him. John's concussion would hurt the most around children. By the way, the fights around the area has started once again. Seriously? Yes, the midget Reachman was really annoyed and kept sending warriors here and there. What is it this time? Some warriors came a month ago and started searching for you and interrogating the clans around the Reach. To say a few fiery and bloody massacres happened. I guess you know whose style is that. My parents. I seriously like those people. Don't you think I picked the best parents for you to be reincarnated for? Shut up. You are annoying. Oh, don't be shy. You like them a lot. I know you do. By the way, your father looks way better in battle. Conjuring ash storms and turning people into ash. You missed a grand sight. And here you are, getting demoted from a voice in my head to an imaginary friend? What? How rude. Just when are you going to break free already? You lazy bum. When I can. Humph. Back in my day, things were much simpler. I mean, getting trapped by a tree would cause you a lot of shame. Says the guy who let himself get killed like a dork. What? I am a peaceful person. I was trying to talk sense into people. Yeah, the bloody mad warrior who bathes in rivers of his enemy's blood, just in a fit of anger. Wait, my image is that bad? Yep. Fine, I'll shut up. John and Shadow arrived at a truce, and John kept mediating. 2 days later, the Briarheart tree around him started to show signs of breaking. John kept struggling until its energies were depleted, and it started to char from the inside. Yes, finally. John circulated his energy to the highest speed he can muster and started exhausting the tree before it could recover. Once everything was done right, cracks started to appear on the surface of the tree, and it was completely charred. John flexed his muscles and cracks sounded out, not only from the tree but from his sore limbs and neck. And finally, it broke. Freedom. John was all smiles as his feet stepped on land again. He almost tripped a few times, but his body started to feel the life again. Every bone made crack, and John heard it like the sound of freedom. He was still dizzy and needed some time to adapt. Things were nice, and all, but then he checked his body and anger kicked it. Fuck. Holy fuck shit. All sort of curses came in his head. His left side was completely less lively compared to the right side. The reason was simple. John wanted to preserve his body, so he protected it from the inside, but he still wanted the viral podomic energy of the Briarheart tree to enter. The only way to do so was to sacrifice some places, and these were his left pinky and little fingers. Now, those fingers are completely black, and the left side of the body was pale as it was damaged by the invading energy. Things didn't end here. There was a vine wrapped around his left leg, and it also showed signs of turning black. Fucking oblivion. He knew what that was, a tissue death. In some advanced cases, it was known as gangrene. There was one way to deal with such a thing. John concentrated on his body and detected how far the case spread. Once he detected its area of effect, he shaped greed into a blade and groan. He mercilessly cut his own dying parts, 2 fingers and 1 foot. Motherfuck. Shadow was taken shocked out of his mind. Shut up. It was the only way. With that out of the way, John shaped some parts of greed into some fingers and a foot to replace the ones he cut. Lost limbs are no problem to him. He can replace them whenever have enough energy to do so. Hey, shut up, man. I am busy here. No, look behind you, you dolt. John looked behind him and saw a person who shouldn't be here in any way possible. It was none other than his labor's prophet, Arania Ionith. Era, Nie? John spoke. Arania looked at him smiling. As she spoke, her voice was the same, but her tone was different. It was much more ethereal if the word fit the description. So, you finally decided to move, young John Hild? Her voice echoed deep in John's mind and soul. Well, I'll be damned. Even Shadow was surprised. John looked at Arania and narrowed his eyes. He can almost swear that he can see an aura of light around her with a star floating over a shoulder and a crescent on the other. It was her. Azura. PayPal. Me/Eldokmezi. Patreon. Remove. Patreon. Com/Eldokmezi. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 336, Azura. This is an extra sponsored by at Coffin with the Fiend. Azura, Queen of Dawn and Dusk, Mother of the Rose, Queen of the Night Sky, Magic between the Realms, Lady of Vanity and Egotism. To what do we owe the pleasure? John spoke his mind to Azura, knowing that she reads his heart. The glimmering light around Priestess Arania shone brighter as Azura's divine possession. She smiled, or rather it was Azura. The smile carried a destructive force of nature that made John almost want to back away and talk to her from the other end of the cave. A pleasure I may not offer if my words you cannot understand. I hinder you not, young John Hild, but your fate and many are entwined. Azura said in an ethereal voice. John's face carried a hint of a frown. Tell me something I don't know. He was still in a fit of anger for cutting his own foot and fingers. He also had many questions to ask, but he had to be patient in front of Azura. Once you tainted the brightest star, you sat a series of actions on the motion of the great wheel of fate. Things are not the same. Fate's changed, and my divinity in the land is not as bright as it once was. My divinity can be dealt with, but the motions of change are imminent and around the land. It will show effects. My labors to you is to alter the fate that will be. You mean I change the future? Greatly. I don't understand. John was confused. How can turning the star into a black one can alter fate that much? In-game. I mean in the future, if the star got altered into black, nothing that serious will happen. Azura looked at John with interest. Speaking of future, as you already know, John looked at Azura with displeasure and nodded. I perform divination of the future. Then you should know that your current fate is not as strong as it is in the future. Your fate now is chaotic, but tomorrow it will be set in stone. Harder to carve. I don't understand. Wait, are you saying that if I tainted the star in the future rather than now, my actions would have no backlash like this one? It is as you said. Your fate hasn't started to take action. Your fate protects others once it takes action. Now that it hasn't taken action, It can barely shield you and some around you. John was stunned for a second. He understood what Azura was saying. In other words, when the game events start, his actions will be protected by his fate, but because his fate is currently this strong, it can change many around it. Taking a lot of actions before the start of the game events is changing the future on a massive scale. This is bad. What exactly have I changed? My divinity is weakened. Who do you think will suffer? Your followers. And when the star was tainted black, who do you think gained power? John pondered for a bit. The black star is a black soul gem, which is a basic tool in necromancy. Necromancers? Be specific. John thought fast and managed to put all the clues together. A name came to his mind and his mouth opened wide. You've got to be kidding me. I am pleased that you are knowledgeable. Among other things, your labors shall come 7. The first was to aid a laborer in the realm of madness. The second was to save the brother whom you need more than you know. You have done both well. So Wulfur is safe. I knew it. Thank goodness. John sighed, but I don't understand. What does Isha and Wulfur has to do with any of that? Brothers are bonded strong. You shall know and see. The laborer carries a secret you need for your last labor. John scratched his head. I am completely lost here. So that thing about tainting the star will make, that guy, my last labor in Isha is necessary for it? Azura nodded. Okay, at least I knew my what last labor will be. John held his head that was started to be painful. Worry not, young John Hild. Your fate will guide others to triumph. My only purpose is to mend what was torn. You shall receive your third labor now. Azura said. Wait, I still have questions. Nefertiti, my cat. These vines are blocking us from each other. Where can I find her? John asked in worry. Over the Fae worry not. For by you she is bound and in a warm place. She is loved and protected. You need to worry about another. Who? The girl with eyes of colors? Alina? John asked. The other girl? Jul? What's wrong with Jul? John's expressions paled. He almost jumped at Azura, but Shadow was there to stop him by pinning Greed to the ground. John barely behaved, but he kept glaring at Azura, who only smiled in return. A child of Dunmare gave birth to that girl, a girl with mixed race. Do you know why people with mixed race are not a lot seen? Azura asked. John's brows furrowed. He was aware of the rarity of half-race people. In this world, if a man and woman mated and a child was born, in most cases that child will be born in the mother's race with some hints from the father. Still, Jelinar was a half-human half-elf, a very unusual breed. Most of those who born with half-races die young. This was common knowledge, but it is not rare for those children to survive. I know why. Then do you understand the reason? I don't. By the higher beings, mortal races are patronized. From them, they have protection and draw fate. On birth, when given a name, children gain fate that if missed will bring demise to their lives, and no higher being patronize a child of another. That's why mixed blood children are ignored by fate. Also, if a higher being falls or changes, fates of those who are patronized follow. John stopped Azura with his hand. Hold up a minute. You are saying that mortals need higher beings to patronize them to get fate and blessing, which is like those racial powers. This happens when the child is given a name, right? Azura nodded. So if anything happened to the god that patronize a race, the race will face changes. Like how Trinimac was eaten by Bothia and then got defecated as a pile of dung. Trinimac changed into Malakath and his followers changed from high elves into orcs. Azura nodded again with a smile, as if she remembered something pleasant. Then Jul is like a child who was born with no fate? A weak fate, but you already gave her fate. Not strong but enough for her survival as long as you survive. Me? Yes. You gave her a name only you understand. You gave her hope and home. The girl worships you, and your fate qualifies you as a higher being. You are patronizing the girl as her god. What? John was not accepting this anymore. With you understanding that, you should know that getting weakened like that has weakened your influence on the girl, and she has fallen sick. John's body shuddered. The complicated problems in his head are now very simple compared to the matters of divinity. This was way too messed up for his head to handle. He held his head as a sharp headache assaulted him again. He didn't care and looked at Azura. Please. Without him saying, Azura nodded. Your feelings are sincere. I already protected the girl's life as much as I could, so she will survive another half a year, but you are her patron is to do the rest. And here comes your third labor. Azura said. John's face was grim black, but he nodded, waiting for hope. You are weakened. Heal as soon as you can. The secret lies in the reach, no place else. By blood, by curse, and by sacrifice, you shall recover. Azura said so, and the ethereal feeling started to fade. Before her divine possession ends, she left some last words for John. Help I offer you not, but sincerity you may get. Happy birthday, young John Hild. His mind turned blank for a few minutes. Too much needed to be done, and he still didn't escape. In a few minutes, someone will come to check, but he was not even caring about that anymore. When Azura disappeared, she took Urania with her and left John to think. Hell, he can't think anymore. His last labor was revealed to him, and he discovered how it was all his fault. Not only that, he discovered the strange state of Jelinar. Not only that, he must not leave the Reach because the cure to his case is in this place. Fuck. John punched the ground with all his might and the ground shocked. Level 1, Ebon Blood Stage's punch started to shake the cave. His frustration and hate rose up. Self-loath and many negative feelings conflicted with each other. He needed to get this thing over within half a year. Lucky for him, it was plenty of time. John looked around him and saw no other thing other than greed with him. It was satisfyingly more than enough. Greed was no ordinary being. It was a part of John with abilities that transcend sense. Just like any inhabitant of the shadow world, it can hide from even the eyes of the Daedric princes. Greed has the ability that John calls release, which allows it to possess dead objects and show its true nature or empower it, all based on the power of John. Rather than that, greed is a formless black matter that can harden in any shape John needs. Swords, bows, spears, armor, etc. That was enough for John, who can't use magic, and his only power is his ridiculous physical strength. Keeping some parts of greed as the body parts he cut, John walked straight to the entrance of the cave. Just as he was about to walk out, someone came in. Grosh. The gigantic freak saw John walking free and almost fell on his butt. John seemed like his norm but was carrying a strange smile on his face. It was not a determined, heroic smile. It was cold. It was cruel. It was sadistic. John may not be able to unleash his tyrant aura, but sure as hell the tyrant was released. He was not just the tyrant from before. He was a wounded beast who is not burdened by anyone to save at the moment. A lone wounded beast. His mind was overwhelmed with all the things he just heard from the goddess, so he was in a maddened state. To sum it up, the beast was wounded, maddened, and lone. So it is. Grosh. John couldn't help but feel his heart dance. Grosh. Grosh. Yeah, whatever. John reshaped greed into a long sickle sword and rotated it as he jumped towards Grosh in a blink of an eye and attacked. Before he would know it, Grosh's head was on the ground. John kicked the head away like a ball and walked to Grosh's body, taking Wulfr's hammer from it. The champion's cudgel was finally in the hands of John. This was a good weapon. Now greed can focus on defense. With that with him, John turned around to face the entrance and go out, but there seemed to be those ones who usually follow Grosh, the forsworn kids. They were standing at their place, silently looking at the headless Grosh with shock. The kids seemed to have lost someone they love. Tisk. John clicked his tongue. He was still in a mad state. Forsworn always had a grudge on Nords. You hate me now. Fine. Can't leave you to grow up and get revenge. One day, can I? PayPal. Me/Eldokmezi. Patreon. Remove. Patreon. Com/Eldokmezi. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 337, Escape. Extra Chapter, Every New, plus $10, Patron or PayPal. Extra Chapter, 5,000 votes. Extra Chapter, 8,000 votes. Alaric was awakened from his hut and was dragged by his men out. A crisis happened. Prince, you need to come. What is that noise? The Nord, Godblood. He broke free. Impossible. It was completely not possible. The Nord was finally dying after 2 months of anticipation. They almost gave up, and now what? He broke free. Did you capture him? No. Prince, something terrible happened. The man led Alaric to the place where forsworn warriors were gathered. It was a hole opened in the mountain leading to a cave. That cave was leading to one of the Briarheart groves. As soon as Alaric reached the inner cave, more people gathered and a lot of cries were heard. What Alaric saw made him almost go insane with anger. How in the world? Why? Children. They were lying on the ground in puddles of their own blood. They were part of his tribe, and he knew some of them by name. They were all the children that Grosh plays with. Just as his brother crossed his mind, Alaric started looking around for Grosh. Hey, has anyone seen Grosh? Where is my brother? Alaric looked and entered the Briarheart Grove. Gods! He saw every single tree in the grove charred black, like what happened with the saplings some time ago. Still, the real shock was still to come. On the largest Briarheart tree where the Nord was trapped, there was a large thing waiting for him resting on the tree. Alaric's being froze in its place. He didn't want to take a look or look away. He didn't want to go closer or go further. He was just frozen. He saw something his head couldn't accept at all. He didn't understand it, even though it was clear to him as the light of day. Shock. Disbelief. Denial. No. He shook his head. That is not how it was supposed to happen. That is not it at all. Grosh. Please no. His brother that protected him for years, and they stood together in many battles against both Nords and Reachmen, was just lying there, head and body separated. John meant it that the body would be visible and the head stuck on the tree. Alaric kept looking at the scene with anger swelling inside him. He was about to shout in rage, but someone came running. We found him. We found the Nord. A forsworn boy came running. Go down there and capture him. Alaric shouted with eyes bloodshot. He didn't go down, Prince. He went up the mountain. Alaric and the forsworn were taken aback for a second. Everyone knew what is up the mountain. Alaric pushed it all to the back of his head and shouted, Go after him. Break his limbs and don't let him die yet. Go. Alaric shouted at the men behind him and walked to Grosh's body, lying it down and putting the head where it should be. He stained his hand with his brother's blood and marked on his face. Whoever kills him will be killed. That Nord is mine. Since the moment he stepped out of the cave, John smelled the fresh air he was deprived from for 2 months. Being forced to live in the hell hole of the Briarheart Grove for that time made him forget how the world smelled so nice. The Briarheart Grove was filled with corpses after all. John knew where he was. According to Shadow, he was southeast of the Reach, not far off Old Hroldan. The place he was in was known as Lost Valley Redoubt, an old ruin filled with forsworn savages. The place was one of the game's best locations, too. John looked around and made sure that he wasn't spotted. Lucky for him, he found a sleeping forsworn stationed on the cave with a few arrows with him. John finished the guy by cutting his head in one slash with greed. He threw the corpse back in the cave and exchanged the rags on him with some of the forsworn's iconic gear of hide and bone. There was no way he can go down their mountain, as he will be found out right away just by his side. At least the disguise he has can support him for a bit if he went up and from there. He knew the way out. The road up the hill was not hard. It was still early in the morning and John was in a mood that is hard to describe. It was his birthday, and he was breaking free after 2 months of humiliation and imprisonment. He was happy that he was finally free, and he was in a grim mood too, as he was barely resisting the urge to kill every forsworn he saw. Until the way up the mountain, John knew he would find a large waterfall with a large portion of the ruins. Up there was a Nordic word wall that he already knew what it was all about as Shadow has memorized its content for John. Still, there was some sort of party going around the word wall on the summit. John knew what to expect once he reached up there. Hagravens. He sneaked quietly until he saw the 3 hags that survived the fight with him were busy creating a Briarheart warrior in a hurry. It seems they are working on a complicated ritual. Heart of Thorn, bones of the wild in life, forsworn. Rise from death, blood of our blood. The hags kept chanting. John has seen that ritual a few times in the grove, so he was familiar with all that dark magic. Because of that, he kept waiting until the crucial moment came. Once the hags were about to place the Briarheart seed in the dead warrior, John transformed greed into a bow and used an arrow to shoot the hand holding the Briarheart seed. Gah! The hag screamed, but John didn't give her any chance to cause a scene. In the next second, he shot 3 arrows all to her head. The other 2 hags were busy trying to cover their sister, and John used that to sneak in as fast as possible and assassinate one of the hags. The second was about to lash at John, but he took the 3rd hag as a hostage right away. Stay, he said. Curses. Curses on you. The free hag seemed to be retreating, so John kicked her sister towards her and the thrust with greed, in the form of a spear. The 2 hags struggled for a bit, but John transformed greed that was stabbing them and obliterated them from inside. A smirk showed on John's face as he interrupted the ritual successfully. He finally killed those 3 annoying hags that tortured him a lot the past month. He looked around and destroyed some evil totems, then gathered some alchemical ingredients that are easy to preserve and fetch money in a bag he found. As he finished, started to make a big fire at the end of the way to the summit. Alaric finally caught up to John, only to find John waiting for him near the waterfall on the summit. This summit was known as Bard's Leap Summit, a place only the bravest of souls would step in. John stood alone on the end of the way up with a fire in front of him facing Alaric and his horde. He seemed to be preparing for something big. Alaric looked at him with rage. Nord, I'll kill you for what you have done. Alaric stepped forward, aiming Bloodskull at its owner. John smirked disdainfully and picked up something from the ground. It was the 3 severed heads of the Hagravens. No, it can't be. He killed the rest of the matrons. The Forsworn were infuriated at John and all aimed their weapons at him. Sadly, none can hurt him now as his plan was already complete. He just threw the heads of the raven in the fire along with some other prepared ingredients. The fire in front of him turned green and some strange noises came out as if the hags were still screaming. This was one kind of the hedge magic that John picked up from observing the hags the last couple of months. Something that didn't need magicka but rather a sacrifice. As the screaming sounds started to settle, 3 points in the ground formed up and expanded like portals. From them, 3 foul creatures walked out. The creatures were large humanoids with crow heads and legs with large black wings on their backs and sickles in their hands. They looked like a very advanced form of the Hagravens, but only John knew what these are. They are called Wraiths of Crows, and they come from the Daedric realm of Evergloam, Nocturnal's realm in Oblivion. Once those creatures appeared, the Reachmen froze at their places. Something so unfamiliar can bring confusion regardless of the situation. John, on the other hand, walked away with light steps. The Briarheart warriors were all stationed away from here, and there was no time. No one knew what John was planning next. Alaric was desperately fighting the creatures John summoned and seemed desperate. Prince, there is no way down from up there. The Nord won't go anywhere. A man said. No, there is a way down. The leap. That's impossible. Damn it. We will buy you time, Prince. The man understood what leap Alaric was talking about. Bard's Leap Summit is high place on the Gerald Mountains, and a place where a river flows down into a waterfall. On the edge of the waterfall, there was a walkway overlooking the whole reach. One can say it is a very high and steep place that walkway was on. Right now, John was standing on the edge of the walkway and someone arrived behind him. John barely looked with half an eye before looking forward again. You. You murderous son of a bitch. I won't let you die if not by my hands. Alaric spoke to John with hate. So far, you are not doing a very good job, John mocked. Even if you survive the leap, you won't go too far. We will drag you back and I will torture you to death. I swear on the name of my grandfather, King Madenak, that you won't get away from me. Alaric held Bloodskull and pointed it at John. Madenak? Right, they call you Prince. John smiled vividly. He knew the king in rags, Madenak. He put many dots together now. I will come for you, Blood Eagle. John left Alaric with those words. Don't you dare. Don't you dare jump down. Alaric was desperately trying to get his hands on John. John looked at Alaric disdainfully. Bitch, Dare is my surname. And I fly. John reached the end of the walkway and let himself fall. No. Alaric ran towards John only to see him falling, but not for long. Suddenly, greed expanded on John's body and made a wingsuit. John glided outside of the forsworn camp to the Karth River. PayPal, me/Eldokmezi. Patreon, remove. Patreon.com/Eldokmezi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 338, Good News, Bad News. Just in case if you were wondering why I let John get captured, this chapter will explain everything. Extra chapter, every new, plus $10, patron or PayPal. Extra chapter, 5,000 votes. Extra chapter, 8,000 votes. Winterhold. Alina was still in a dazed state of what happened yesterday. She met someone, or something, that she never ever dreamt of meeting before. That was obviously Gleam, a part of the cult of Kine that is known as Guardians of the Grove, and resided in Kine's Grove, had tales about a legendary godlike being that lives in the Elder Gleam Sanctuary who's shown herself in history barely once or twice, but the tales are still there. Known to have some godlike powers, that being was always associated with Kine, and the sanctuary was always treated as a sacred place. The origin of the name Elder Gleam was unknown, but to think that the spirit of the tree itself was called Gleam. Well, Alina was petrified when she met Gleam. She fainted and woke up while being tended to by Gleam herself. Gleam was a very beautiful being with wide green eyes and brown hair surrounded by a mystic aura that can't belong to a mortal. Her petite appearance and curious wide eyes didn't reflect her true age of being the oldest known being on Tamriel. It was a traumatic experience in many ways. Alina was always a fangirl of the spirits of Nirn and dreamt that she can one day meet with one of those fairies. Still, the idea that the most ancient tree in the land was actually a fairy made Alina question the existence of the universe and the meaning of life. Still, the meeting wasn't all that bad. Alina benefited a lot by simply talking with Gleam. Out of all things in the world, Gleam knew about John and assured Alina that he is alive. More so, she explained Jeliner's situation to Alina and told her that the Twilight Rose is watching over both John and Jeliner. The Twilight Rose is of course the Daedric Prince Azura. Alina couldn't wait to fly back on Locthar and spread the news in Winterhold, but she regained her sanity and started to think of how to decisively retrieve both John and Jeliner. Sadly, Gleam couldn't interfere with John's labor and started to explain the meaning of the labors to Alina. She was rather shocked when she learned that John bore such a burden alone without telling anyone. She knew about John facing a problem with some Daedric prince, and he said that he will resolve it, but for that to be Azura of all the Daedra. It was shocking. Azura can be argued to be one of the top dogs in Oblivion despite her benevolent image, and offending such a Daedra can worsen the relationship between Winterhold and the large population of dark elves that worship Azura. No wonder John kept the matter under the rugs. Worrying about him is pointless. He is already recovering his power and planning to get back at his enemies. If you want to go to him, I'll aid you. That was what Gleam said. Apparently, Gleam has taken a liking on both John and Alina, and she mentioned something about Nefertiti too being a similar race to hers. Alina couldn't make heads and tails of the way Gleam spoke in, but she couldn't help but worry about John and miss him. She wanted to be with him no matter the cost. You do not need to worry, Elder Gleam. I know John all right, and will find a way to reach him. Alina said, not with those eyes of yours. Don't you feel like losing control over the power you have? Gleam dropped a bomb on Alina's head. Alina was shocked and couldn't muster a word to reply with. Contrary to her expectation, Gleam offered help. The trinket that the boy made for you is quite useful, but you are getting more powerful. I can help. Please. Alina was desperate for help. It was true. Her eyes got stronger, and the Firekeeper mask was barely suppressing her eye powers. Her eye may out of control and accidentally kill someone. That was how strong her eyes were. Very well. Gleam floated in the air and flew to her body, which is the tree, then took a leaf and a branch. Careful. Alina was flustered as she saw someone break their own body. Here you go. Eat this. Gleam offered the leaf to Alina. Why am I thinking of All Might? What is that? What do you think it is, silly? A leaf. Isn't this awkward? Getting your hair, leaf eaten? Why is that? It happens all the time? Oh. Yes, I see you are. A tree after all. Haha. A person and a tree. Why does that sound awkward all of a sudden? It was too much for Alina's brain. Stress, then shock, and now confusion. It was exhausting. What will this leaf do? She asked. You will be carrying my presence on you, and that will be enough to make you powerful enough to stop the blessing of the Dreamweaver. Truly? Alina couldn't believe she is ridding herself from the curse on her eyes, even though Gleam just called it a blessing. It was true. If a blessing is too powerful, then it is a curse. It is true. You can finally free yourself from the blindfold. Alina was thrilled to hear the news and agreed immediately. Once she ate the leaf, changes started to happen. She felt a strong surge of energy in her energy center. She sat down and started circulating her energy to consume it. Her pupils that were fixed in a vertical slit shape turned back to normal round pupils. Gleam kept watching what Alina was doing in wonder and could tell that the leaf that she gave to Alina was being consumed at a rapid rate. While doing so, Alina's skin turned red and normal a few times in the span of a few hours until she opened her eyes again. She was mystified by the feeling. One leaf of the Elder Gleam shot her level to level 7, Jade Skin Stage. This was really some unexpected harvest. She was not sure about her eyes, but jumping up a few levels in one day is something rare. As soon as she opened her eyes, she had to endure 1 hour of Gleam talking about various stuff. In the end, Gleam offered the branch she took with the leaf. It was a straight and big branch enough to craft a cane, but it is a branch from Elder Gleam herself. This was no ordinary branch. If Alina's guess is correct, this branch can break Wolfer's best swords. The Elder Gleam is in existence older than any metal on Nirn after all. It was impossible to harm it by normal means. What is this branch for? Alina asked. It is a branch? What do you mortals do with branches? Gleam asked. No idea. I think a bough can be a good choice. Oh, I see. You are not the creative one. Fine, take it to the boy and he will have an idea what to do with it. Tell him it is a gift. To John. Fine. Alina thanked Gleam 1,000 times and headed off the sanctuary holding the branch and the Firekeeper mask in her hands like a kid going out of a toy store. Once Lochthar saw her, he landed but kept looking at her with hesitation. It was the first time he sees his owner in the eye, so the griffin was still trying to rope its bird brain around the situation. Alina decided to turn the Firekeeper mask into the Stormrage crown. It still can amplify her magic and eye powers greatly. Hopping on Lochthar's back, she flew back to Winterhold. This all happened yesterday, and she can accept it with an open mind. She arrived at Winterhold late and went to bed as no one was up when she came home, but when she woke up, why on Nirn was there a tiny Gleam sleeping next to her? Between the Reach and Falkreath holds, Blackbone clan hidden cave. Screams and wails echoed as blood and guts spilled on the ground. Many men were holding their shields up, trying to protect the others behind them, who controlled the undead. The Blackbone clan was being invaded, and its men were being slaughtered. None in the Blackbone clan could ever think that their family that held on for thousands of years and thrived in the late 200 years would face annihilation on this day. Their defenses crumbled and their ancestral cave was besieged. The women and children managed to sneak away from the back of the cave, and the men had to buy enough time for them to escape. Ever since that chaos started in the Reach 3 months ago, those bloody firemen were bound to appear to look for their relative, John Dare. Following these events, she was said that she has put down her axe and settled somewhere at the end of the world, yet here she is, as bloody as 12 years ago, and with her battle axe at hand, and her infamous crew that has sworn a blood oath to serve her and her family at her back. She was that famous. The only reason why they can think she would come for them was because of the attack they initiated at the firemen's with blood sales more than a year ago. It was John Dare who managed to sabotage their plans back then, so it was natural that they wanted vengeance, and so they were visited by the firemen's. Rolf Blackbone, you know why I am here. Hilda spoke, and her voice echoed. An elderly man wearing armor stepped forwards from the ranks of the defenders, and the skirmish was halted. Bloody Hilda, I know why you are here. We don't have the fireman boy. Leave us, damn you. The man replied. If you don't have him, then you know where he is. Why on Nirn did you mobilize your clansmen the day he disappeared? You are into that plot. Who's after it? You pile of old bones. Hilda had her own scenario into her head. We didn't ambush they boy. We don't even have business with him. Ask the Forsworn. We only moved because they moved. Rolf Blackbone was desperate. He knew the result of the fight. Don't make me get you, Blackbone. Say it or I am sending you all here to oblivion. Lord Molag Bal as my witness. I didn't even know anything. Rolf swore in his god's name. The Blackbone clan was a Daedra-worshipping hidden clan after all, much like cults but less harmful because of the blood bonds that tie them. I don't care about your Daedra. Swear to me on your son's life. As she said so, Hilda's crew dragged a warrior in his 30s right beside Hilda. It was Rolf's son, Jor. He was accompanying the women and children who escaped the siege. No. Rolf's face turned ashen pale, not trying to think of what happened to his clansmen that escaped. Sorry, father. I got captured. The rest escaped. You filthy firemans. Raising his sword, Rolf didn't care anymore and ran towards Hilda. She clicked her tongue and threw Jor away to face Rolf. Only 3 exchanges were enough to kill the old fool. Hilda was depressed as she found no clue from the Black Bones. Last chance. Whoever knows anything will save your doomed clan, Hilda said, looking at the Black Bones. The Black Bones' blood was boiling once their patriarch died. They didn't withstand the shame and raised their weapons one. For the patriarch. Save Jor. Kill that bloody woman. They all charged at Hilda and her crew at once. Damn you. Hilda knew that she is now fighting a cornered beast and readied herself for a hard fight, but suddenly, a fire stream came from behind them and landed on the Black Bones, burning them in one go. Screams and cries filled the place as the men were burned to ash and the ones who survived ran for their lives. Hilda looked behind her to see a large man in black cloak and hood with a flaming sword standing behind her crew. Leave us. With one word from that man, Hilda's crew dispersed in a few seconds. Hilda, go home. You are just killing people. The man spoke. Hilda's face hardened, and she shook her head. You can't stay here. You just gave birth a few months ago. Thor and Iden need you. I am not. She wanted to say something, but she stopped. Her heart finally found happiness, and she can't give it up that easily. Jonrad, I can't. The bloody beast from a while ago turned into a meek woman in front of her husband. Jonrad shook his head with a sigh. You can't do anything like that. You are just starting fights, not looking for clues. Let Tyr and I handle that. We already have a lead. Really? Yeah. Merchants gave us a tip. A large man was seen jumping from a summit inhabited by Forsworn into a river. They say he flew for a bit before landing in the river, then forcing one of them off a horse and taking it deep in the reach. You know who loves to jump from high places so much? don't you? It's John Hilda. Our son is okay, and jumping off mountains. Johnrad smiled as he pulled Hilda to his embrace and kissed her head. She was tearful for a bit, but she listened to him and walked with him out of the black bone cave. Still, they made a single mistake. A very big one. They didn't check for survivors, and sure as hell, there was one. Jor, son of Rolf Blackbone, was hiding under the rubble behind some corpses. PayPal, me/Eldokmezi. Patreon, remove. Patreon, com/Eldokmezi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Once it docked, a figure jumped down fast on a rope ladder. It was Vittoria Vici. As her feet touched the pier, she turned towards Winterhold's people and strode right away until she saw Alina and paused for a second. Her head worked fast, and she figured out Alina's identity, then walked towards her with an awkward face. Alina too didn't like Vittoria and kept looking haughtily at her. Miss Moonblade, Miss Vici. The atmosphere was a bit tense, but it seemed that Vittoria had something to say. I just heard some news from Solitude and came right away from the city of Blacklight. This is about Thane John's company, and it is urgent. Vittoria approached Alina and whispered something to her. Alina's cool was disturbed, and she was about to break into anger, but she managed to hold it all in. She kept glaring at the other ship, as if trying to sink it with her eyes, which was not completely impossible for her. Indeed, as people from the other ship landed, the atmosphere became way tenser than it already is. Even Vittoria stood beside the people of Winterhold and kept looking at the ones who came. A few imperial gentlemen walked down from the ship, staggering after a seemingly long journey, and faced Alina and her people. They saw Alina and held their breath for some time before mustering the courage to walk forward and talk to the representatives of Winterhold. An elderly man took the lead of the envoys and spoke. Hello. I presume you are from the Dare Dragon Company. I am Suris Loch, an officer from the Imperial Guild of Commerce. We are here to deliver the issued license for the Dare Dragon Company. The chief executive officer of your company has applied for a license, and here it is. Will he please receive it, or send a representative to receive it in his stead? The man said, taking out a large scroll of paper that has many words written on it and marked with many seals. This is indeed a legit license that all the traders would die to have, a license that transforms the company from a small entity that operates in a limited space to a large-scale company that can operate all around the empire. Something like that was a thing John always sought after. But Alina knew better. This is a double-edged sword. It can broaden the limits of the company, but it will put a certain limit that she could sniff coming. She looked at the man and spoke. I am the representative of the Dare Dragon Company and Thane John Dare of Winterhold. My beloved is absent at the moment, and by the legal authorities he left for me. I wish that the company receives that license on a later date. Now if you excuse me, Alina said, and turned around. This was the right thing to do, not accepting the license. I am afraid that is not possible. A voice spoke, and Alina stopped. The accent was Nordic, which was quite unusual for a Nord to keep company with the Imperials. Alina looked at whoever spoke, and her eyes narrowed. The man stepped forward, but she didn't recognize him. However, others like Vittoria Vici and Alishka did recognize the man really well. All those who recognized the man looked at him with hate and contempt. Vittoria spoke his name so that Alina can hear it. Eriker. Just one word was enough to cause Alina to almost go berserk. She turned around and looked at the man who masterminded John's demise, and anger swelled in her. Opposite to her, Eriker looked at Alina with dirty eyes full of lust. Around him, there was a few Imperial soldiers with a high-ranking legionnaire. This situation was already planned for. Eriker came with enough people to force his way in Winterhold. Still, Alina was not the person who would care for such a thing. Seeing Eriker's ugly mug was enough for her natural red eyes to be even redder and her eye powers to go out of control and assault Eriker. Thud. Buff. It burns. Stop. My eyes. The force that was released from her eyes was too overpowering that Eriker fell on his knees and started quivering in pain and screaming in agony. The pain was so great that blood started to come from his nose, ears and eyes, and the vines of his neck were all stretching out and turning black. No one needed a clue to understand what is going on. The glow of Alina's eyes was visible to everyone. The legionnaire beside Eriker was the first to react and stood between Alina and Eriker. It was of no use though, as Alina can see through things and Eriker can escape the torture. Stop, by the order of the Empire. You are assaulting a member of an Imperial envoy. You are under arrest. The legionnaire, whose rank was captain, took out his sword and pointed it at Alina, but without an answer. Alina was simply enjoying the agony she was inflicting on Eriker. I said, stop. The legionnaire was enraged, and he stepped towards Alina waving his sword. Slash. Swash. In a split of a second, the sword fell from the hand of the legionnaire captain along with the arm that carried it. Aya! The man couldn't withstand the pain and fell screaming. In front of him was the object that cut his arm. It was a hatchet. A mere old hatchet descended on his arm and cleanly cut the arm down. Only one man in Winterhold can do that. Alina stopped what she was doing and looked at whoever threw it. It was indeed Wulfur. He walked forward with a wrathful face and stood beside Alina. You okay, sister-in-law? Alina nodded. He turned around and kicked the Imperial captain away, then walked to Eriker. Why is that weasel not in prison? Wasn't he supposed to be judged by the High King? He asked. He has connections in the Imperial Guild of Commerce. He was bailed out by a plea from the guild. Vittoria Vici replied. *spat Imperial dogs. Wulfur spat at Eriker and kicked his guts. The Imperial soldiers who were supposed to be protecting Eriker were all pushed back by the raw presence of Alina and Wulfur. The two were trained by John and were refined to the top state a human can reach. Hell, as a level 3 Jade Skin stage and a level 7 Jade Skin stage, both of them were already superhumans with a lifespan that may reach 500 years. The strongest two in Winterhold were already that angry. Eriker was completely exposed to the wrath of those two, but he could still resist fainting in the spot. Compared to them, John's pressure that he experienced was way scarier. You can't stop this too late, haha. Even if you kill me, I already won, and you will be hunted as murderers. Eriker was carrying a hint of madness in his eyes. He is so close to destroying John's empire, and he can't back down now even if oblivion was the cost. Miss Vici, please explain to your friends. Mr. Eriker is a guild officer. Officer Surus Loch. Vittoria didn't want to get involved in this particular point. She was an ally to the Dare Dragon Company and has a lot of investments, so she was wholeheartedly on the same boat as them. If the purpose of Eriker was achieved, it will cause her a big loss and her position in the East Empire Company will be threatened. Explain yourself, she replied. Very well. Surus Loch spoke. The Dare Dragon Company is already registered in the guild, so we will, by all means, protect its interests. Protect? Elishka questioned with a mocking face. Indeed, the company's interests are the guild's interests. The company controls a massive domain that can be said to monopolize 1/9 of Skyrim. This means that the company's worth is over 500,000 septim. Any company with such a worth should have a proper manager such as Thane John Dare, who has a title equal to a military viscount. Now that Thane John is absent for more than 2 months, he is presumed dead. It is by law that the guild appoints an acting director to the company with a noble title to oversee the ins and outs of such an organization. Thane Eriker volunteered to help the Dare Dragon Company, and the guild has agreed. Officer Surus Loch spoke while being wary. Still, there was no way to sugarcoat what he said just now. The people gathered around turned pale. Handing John's company to his enemies? This was a blunt declaration of war. The Empire was clearly trying to get back to Winterhold with all what it got. Wulfr was enraged and was about to kill Erikr where he is, but it was Alina who stopped him. I see. Very well. She spoke quietly and stepped up. Everyone around her was in cold sweat. This may be the end of either the peaceful Winterhold or the prosperous Winterhold. It is either a clash with the Empire or submission. Now Alina was making that decision. I am already the legal agent and representative of Thane John Dare. Will this help my claim? She handed out something to Officer Surus. He looked at the object with wide eyes and open mouth, then nodded. Yes, it does, my lady. Shall I record it? By all means. Something different was happening. Alina seemed to have used some sort of a trump card. Mr. Surus, what is that? What is going on? Erikr, who was kneeling on the ground under Wulfr's foot, felt that something was wrong. Old man Surus looked at him and switched sides with Winterhold right away. Sorry, Mr. Erikr. Your presence is no longer necessary. Surus Loch sold Erikr right away for his safety. Erikr was to blame after all. Alina took the object back from Officer Surus. It was a metal badge made of ebony steel. Erikr's eyes were glued on it. Take that mongrel to the Black Room, Alina said while pointing at Erikr. Wulfr pulled him up from his hair, and Alina came closer and put the badge in front of Erikr's face. See that? John was always a step ahead of everyone. With this, I will make you my bitch. Alina's vulgar words and classy tone negated each other, but her eyes were enough to express her rage. Erikr's eyes were still glued on the badge. It had an inscription of Winterhold's coat of arms and a text under it that said, Alina Moonblade, Thane of Winterhold. PayPal, me/Eldokmezi. Patreon, remove. Patreon.com/Eldokmezi. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Chapter 340, Unexpected Help. An extra was supposed to be published last week for 5,000k votes. Well, here it is. Also, a sponsored character returns today. All that time, you were a Thane? Sviti asked. John foresaw some trouble happening in his absence and talked with Jarl Career to give me the title. Mama has to watch the house when Baba is out. Ha ha ha, I see. So, Lady Boss, what is the plan? Alishka questioned. Alina took a deep breath before answering that and looked at the people in front of her. There were all the key figures of Winterhold. Before we start, we have some matters to address. Just a while ago, we took the people of the Imperial Guild of Commerce to the Jarl's Keep and signed all the necessary papers. The legal office in our company has gone through the agreements, and we are good to go. Still, the situation with the Imperials this time was worse than predicted. They tried to push Erikr on us so that Winterhold fall into their hands, and they manipulate the affairs with the company. It was one dirty move indeed, even though they were bound to fail. Our company is deeply rooted in the hold, and our inner system that John came up with ensures that no one can ever hinder us except whipping us all out. Therefore, we need to respond to this move the Empire took. Being the behemoth they are, I don't have a clue how to get back at them. Wulfr, how do you think John would respond in our situation? Alina directed a very important question to Wulfr of all people. He is the only one who can understand John, and they completely trust each other. John appears to be rational and likes to play fair, but that's only a facade. John is obsessed with being in control and gives the opponent the illusion of having a chance of winning before completely shredding them to pieces and doing a wired dancing over their corpses. Wulfr said so with a remorseful smile. He gave the Empire many chances to get on his good side, but they always try to bite his ass. I asked him once about the reason why he doesn't have a bad feeling regarding the Empire and avoiding Ulfric. He said the influential Nords who sided with the Empire are somehow good people. We have Jarl Balgruuf, Jarl Idgrod, King Torrig, while some are just some arrogant fucks. On the other hand, the ones who sided with Ulfric are either incompetent Jarls like Layla Loghavar or fanatics like Skald the Elder. The difference between the two sides is that the Nords who sided with the Empire think of the big picture, even though the Empire itself is rotten to the core, while the ones on the side of Jarl Ulfric are mostly rotten themselves. I say we can't make such a big decision without John, but if you want to harass the Imperials, you can just give them the cold face. How so? Make trouble with them and lessen the supplies we send to their fort. If they sent anyone for explanting, lock them in the Black Room. If they cause trouble, kick them out of the fort. Alina nodded. You are right. Making their life harder is a good start. Sev, that captain whose arm was cut by Wulfr, news on him? Alina asked Sev. Yes, my lady. He was taken by a legion priest to get his arm reattached. Then deliver this order to not let any legionnaire into town, even for medicine. Yes. Trudvar, our newest inmate in the Black Room, that slime Eriker. I don't want him out even if the Aetherius and Nirn collapsed on each other. And assign him that Redguard torturer that John talked about. It already happened, my lady. The torturer requested some special items for the torture, and we are gathering the inventory for him. Special items? Like knives, razors, and poisons? Alina asked. No, it was some flowers, butterflies, a drawing of a bossmare girl, and a narwhal tusk, Trudvar said. Huh. My reaction exactly. Still, Boss would always give the Redguard whatever he asks for. The guy is effective and clean. Still, no one understands what he does. Some say that those who he tortures lose the bright of their eyes and remain silent forever. Trudvar explained. Alina was still having a hard time understanding how can torture happen with such strange tools. I am not sure what to expect from the first 3 items, but I don't want to know what will happen with the narwhal tusk. If you catch my drift, Angium shuddered in cold sweat. Fine, fine. With that out of the way, we can finally start our business. Alina clapped her hands and changed the subject. First off, I need to tell you how my eyes are back to normal. It is all related to John. Alina started telling an edited story about how she met a spiritual being that helped her recover and told her of John's status. She was also given the means to find him. This is fantastic news. My lady, whatever it is, we will do it. Angium spoke. Thank you, Captain. We need to gather our best and head out to the Reach. I am sure John will make his own ruckus and we will find him right away. Alina said. Didn't the elders say we should stay put? The gloomy Wulfr asked. Alina glared at him. Screw that. They don't even have the guts to order John around, and they want to order me? No, I am done being everyone's favorite girl and I am doing what I have to do for John and for Winterhold. In case you're not getting the image in my mind for Alina, she talks like Anna Henrietta from Witcher 3, so fucking class. Wulfr nodded and didn't say anything. Now, let's focus on the problems we at hand. As John's representative, I can mobilize 200 men under his name, and as Thane myself, I can mobilize 200. This is 400 in total. I don't want to leave Winterhold unguarded, so I want to have the best combination of soldiers. Any suggestions? My lady, according to what we know, the Reach is a rocky area with many twisted roads and hidden caves. Horses won't serve us much, so we can't take our cavalry. We certainly need our heavy troops and light troops, so I suggest a combination of both. Trudvar said. I see. What are the numbers we have? Alina asked. My lady, only the boss knew, and he kept making many camps in different places, so no one can know the exact number of our forces. What we can tell is that we have already surpassed the limit of 1,000 man in our mercenary corps, and if anyone found out the real number of our troops, the company is going to be in trouble. Alishka said. Wait, we have more than a 1,000? Yes, the boss kept them in many places and under different jobs than mercenaries like guardsmen, local militia, and caravan guards. He said that only the commanders know how many they control, and there is only one person other than him knew the total number the company can mobilize. Trudvar said. Alina could think of only one person. She looked straight to Wulfr. Wulfr nodded and took out a file and passed it to Alina. She looked at what's inside and barely kept a poker face. Hey, was John trying to participate in some war? She thought. In front of her, The file contained details about the different teams of the Dare Corps and their commanders. In total, Alina was introduced to the real power of the company. To summarize it, it was an army and a navy. The Dare Fleet consists of 1 dragon ship, which is the flagship Queen Potima's Revenge, 8 cruiser ships, which are Roaring Flame, Thunder Wrath, Iron Maiden, Winter Grace, Bloody Witch, Sea Ghost, Knifehead, and Hasty Bee, 25 gunboats named by numbers, and all that was powered by a total 800 sailors known as the Dare Marines. She looked at Angium, who controlled all that number, and he smiled shyly. That man was not only a good friend of John, but also can control all that large number on his own. Still, the wonders didn't end here. The Dare Corps was much more diverse. It had the infantry known as Team 1, armed with spears, swords, and shields, and called the Dare Troopers. Their number was 2,000 under the command of Wolfer. The mages, known as Team 2, are armed with Fireball, Lightning Strike, and Frost Orb spells, and called the Dare Cannoneers. Their numbers was 200 under her lead. The shooters of Team 3, armed with lever-action crossbows, called Dare Arbalists. Their number was 1,000 under the lead of Housecarl Trudvar. Team 4 was consisted of the cavalry known as Dare Dragoons, whose number was 800 under John's personal lead. And finally, Team 0, under Jelliner's lead, and their information were classified. The total was around 5,000 unit. Just how in oblivion do we keep all that fed? Alina was facing her first test as a leader of how to stay composed in front of this ridiculous power. Of course, none of that was as large as Imperial Legion or the Stormcloak Alliance, but the quality of the troops was always something John made sure of. If the information on the file was true, then many of these troops have already learned the bat spirit arts and studied martial arts. John was not the one who would shy out in terms of teaching. Of course, he would keep the super powerful spells and techniques to himself, but he would be generous and distributed a variety of battle spirit training manuals of the different boot camps. He even made many logistic and support teams, as well as battle simulations and how to mix the teams together. In battle, the teams wouldn't go fight on their own, but would mix themselves as one greater army, because it is impossible to fight with one kind of soldiers. In the end, even if 100 Eriker tried to take over the company, the troops can simply put Winterhold a hole on the lockdown and completely take over Winterhold. Was the Empire trying to take over Winterhold because they know about the company's power, or did they try to take over because they didn't know? The answer makes 2 completely different situations. By the looks of it, John kept Winterhold free of spies by inviting all the spy organizations that can fill the blanks and managing them himself. So the chance of the Empire knowing anything about that was low. Still, the power didn't exist to be hidden. One day that power will have to come out to the light and new rules will be put. Alina sighed and put down the files. "Thanks, Wolfer," she said. "Now that we have more than what we need, we should think of how to mobilize at least 400 soldiers to the Reach. As I said before, John's badge and mine afford that number, so I am taking the liberty assembling a force consisted of 50 cannoneer, 100 arbalist, and 250 troopers. Team 0 will scout and do its usual work as we expect it to do, and the supply line will be secured from our outpost in Whiterun. John Battleborn will see to it." "It is all good and fine, my lady, but we either have to move by land or by sea. By sea will take a long time, and we have to land in Solitude to reach the Karth River. Landing in Solitude will make us go through 1,000 inspections by the Imperial Legion, and an unauthorized landing will make the Empire look for trouble with us right away. We can move by land, and the best way is to go through the Pale. The only problem is that Jarl Skald of Dawnstar won't let us pass, and we may need to move by force, costing us people and time." "It is your choice, my lady," Trudvar said. "It is as you said, Housecarl Trudvar." I will handle that," Wolfer spoke out. "Elaborate," Alina asked. "Angium and I will handle Jarl Skald. You will pass without a problem through the Pale," Wolfer said. "Fine, we'll discuss your plan together." Alina agreed once she saw the determined look on Wolfer's face. "With that, I think everyone knows what to do. Your files all contain your duties. Please, be." "Excuse me, my lady." Sev, the secretary, came from outside and interrupted Alina. "What is it?" A man came from Morrowind. He said he is friends with Boss John and he heard of his capture. He said he can help. What is his name? Lonma Sadr. Lonma Sadr is a sponsored character by Matthew Landon. Lonma Sadr. Of course Alina remembered the name. He is a Nord of Clan Sadr of the Rift. He was a person captured by the Bloodhorkers and got freed by John in last battle against them. He works in Morrowind and promised he would repay John one day for saving him. Fine, Sev. I will see him. Alina moved from the conference table to the main large office and sat behind it surrounded by Wulfar and Trudvar. Lonma Sadr entered the office and greeted Alina right away. Crimson Moon of the Great Clan Moonblade, greetings. Lonmas of the ancient Clan Sadr, it is a pleasure. Please sit. Alina greeted a fellow member of the hidden clan who was on the good side of her clan. Inside it, there was a large seal that seemed to be fit of a royal court. That seal carried the insignia of the Empire and another insignia of a tilted scale. Alina knew what it meant. This is a royal seal ordered by Emperor Tiber Septim to be given to the great House Hlalu of Morrowind. The holder of that seal can go through any Imperial Legion inspection without a hitch and can even request aid from the Legion. My employer said that she will lend it to the company until Thane John is found. Lonmas said. Alina looked with wide eyes to the seal and then looked at Lonmas. She remembered hearing the name of his employer once, but she can't remember it exactly. I'm sorry, who was your employer again? Alina asked. Lonmas smiled and rested his back to his seat. She is called the Old Woman of Mournhold. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.